I'm starting. Just a moment. One more minute. Okay, so I'm going to admit everybody in 3, 2, 1.
Okay, Juan.
Okay, the room is open.
Okay. Let's wait a little bit for people to get in. Well, good morning from Brazil. Good afternoon for our friends from Africa and from Europe. And almost good night to our friends from India. This is the international conference, Leaving No One Behind, Water and Inequalities. And this conference was organized by us at PUC, and I was one of the organizers. And for my good friend from Italy, Mr. Giuseppe Musnisi, and with all the cooperation and the position from UNESCO and from our people from PUC and from India. So we are going to start this conference with a welcome address of Father Josafá Siqueira, our president of PUC-Rio. And then after that, we'll have other welcome addresses and presentations from some of the important people that we have here with us and our sponsors. That will be the first part. And then the second part, we'll have the conference of professors from PUC-Rio, from India, from universities, institutions in India, and from Africa on the water inequalities and surveyor inequalities. So I wish all our friends who are present here and all our sponsors and presentators a wonderful day and a very good meeting in this international conference. Now, Father Josafá, the floor is yours. Please make your presentation. Pode começar, Padre Josafá.
Okay. Good morning. Buenos dias, bom dia em Brasil. Welcome. Eu vou falar em castelhano, em espanhol, e a projeção está em inglês, ok? Bem-vindo a todos a la conferencia internacional entre los diferentes países, onde nosotros tenemos un problema común. El problema es la agua y la cuestión de las desigualdades sociales. Welcome el presidente da UNESCO para las cuestiones intergubernamentales, Padre Georges, welcome a Giuseppe Musned, conocido de nosotros, welcome a todos los demás participantes en Latinoamérica, en India, Europa, África, Rusia y Mónaco. El tema de la conferencia internacional es una cuestión muy importante para nosotros. ¿Cómo hablar de la agua con la problemática de la desigualdad? Ese es un desafío que todos nosotros tenemos. Pero nosotros tenemos una inspiración, una fuente de la inspiración para hablar sobre la temática, el tema. Yo prefiero tener como la inspiración la encíclica del Papa Francisco, Laudato Si. La encíclica nos llama atención sobre 3 puntos que yo creo que son muy importantes. En primero, la cuestión del agotamiento de la fuente de los recursos hídricos de la agua en la naturaleza. Ese es un problema que muchos de nuestros países tenemos. Hoje, eu creio que há mais de 35 países do mundo que vivem com a questão da escassez da água, não? O segundo ponto, a impossibilidade de manter uma sustentabilidade da água com os padrões de consumo que nós outros temos hoje, né? O terceiro, a questão da qualidade da água, né? E sobretudo, de uma maneira geral, sobre a questão da qualidade da água e a sua relação com as populações mais pobres. Quando miramos a questão da água, el mundo 6.4 é uma referência de estudos de pesquisador, investigador brasileiro. Então, é uma situação realmente muito preocupante. Agora, por exemplo, temos uma situação que preocupa nós outros, né? Com a diminuição pouco da precipitação, da lluvia. Então, é uma situação realmente complexa que nós outros temos que reflexionar, né? A importância da água, todos nós outros temos a atenção sobre a questão do consumo humano, a questão da indústria, e também não podemos olvidar da importância da água para manutenção, ou para manter os ecossistemas que nós outros temos. Nós outros temos muito ecossistema em la Índia, em Brasil, em Norte América, em Europa, e que são ecossistemas que dependem muito da água para a sua evolução, para a sua ampliação. Então, esse é um problema, porque a água tem papel fundamental para manter os biomas, os ecossistemas que nós outros temos no planeta Terra. A preocupação que nós outros temos é a questão da relação, né? Esta relação que temos entre a água e as populações, né? Populações mais pobres, né? Então, ainda há muitas pobreza em nossos continente e nossos países, e então é um problema, porque muitas delas endemias ou mesmo das enfermidades que nós outros temos, se procede da má qualidade da água, não? Por exemplo, a diarreia, a cólera e tantas outras que nós outros temos. Então, essa é uma situação muito preocupante que temos que encontrar um caminho de sustentabilidade, não? A questão é que nós outros temos que mirar pouco uma concepção mais sistêmica da água, porque em los dias atuais a concepção da água é pouco uma concepção mais econômica, não tanto uma visão mais sistêmica da água. Então, temos que ver a importância da água nas culturas, né? A perspectiva teológica, cultural e uma dimensão mais holística da problemática. Por quê? Porque a água ela é fator muito importante nas religiões, né? Mira, por exemplo, as religiões, a importância que tem na água para as dimensões sacramentales, a purificação, para os sacramentos, né? E depois também temos a importância da água em las culturas. Por exemplo, na Amazônia, muitas das culturas de nós outros dependem da água, da fonte da água. Aqui se invita uma reflexão, né, sobre uma nova hidroética. Como se habla de uma nova hidroética, né? Uma nova hidroética tem 4 pontos fundamentais. El primero, la cuestión de la concepción más sistémica del agua, ¿no? O sea, al agua en la cultura, de los ecosistemas, en las religiones y el agua en la ciencia. O segundo ponto é a importância da água em contexto de cambio climático, né, que nós outros vivemos. Como falar da água e a importância das fontes, das reservas da água, o mundo que se agora está em processo de cambio climático. E depois desarrollo mais para uma reeducação, que nós outros chamamos de educação ambiental, né? O desenvolvimento ambiental. Então, é uma questão porque temos que mirar pouco uma concepção mais ampla, mas também a necessidade de processo em las comunidades, de uma reeducação para o manuseio da água, enquanto fator importante e fundamental. E, por fim, a preservação da água mais profunda, né? A água mais profunda, que são uma reserva fundamental de emergencial, né? Com uma fonte futura. Né? Essa é uma questão que temos que a ciência ha discutido muito, ha reflexionado muito sobre isso. Bem, esses são os pontos que eu creio que são muito importantes para começar na conferência internacional. Thank you very much, muitas graças, muito obrigado.
Thank you, Father Josaphat. I think this was very important for our international conference to start with this very deep and profound thoughts that Father Josaphat, as a specialist in the Laudato Si of our Holy Father Francisco, has presented us. Now we'll have the welcome address by the President of UNESCO Intergovernmental Council, Professor Fadi Comer. Professor Comer, it's a pleasure to have you with us. Please, the floor is yours. Oi, tem o som do professor Comer.
Thank you so much, Dean Kunhakensu, so much, dear Giuseppe. Thank you so much for all the colleagues who invited us. I'm so happy to see President Kushud with us today. And I was really very, very happy to listen to the presentation of Father Josaphat, especially that he placed water as an ethical concerns, because it reminds me 10 years ago, since I am a member of the Academy of Ethics in France, I wrote an article that the matter of climate change, global changes and water issues is a matter of ethics. And I wanted to place it at the COP21 on the 2nd of December, when we all met for a week in France, and we prepared the Pact of Paris concerning water management, and the Minister Ségolène Royal was heading this very important session concerning the Pact of Paris. I really wanted that water be a matter of ethics, because water linked all the people in the world, regardless their religion, regardless their ethnic origin. And water could not be a tool for war. Water should be a tool for peace. Water should not be managed as a hegemonic matter of management. It should be really under equitable sharing and reasonable use, so that the future generation will ensure water for their life and for their food security. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm really honored to be today to speak to all of you about this highly important matter, especially that we all live in a time of unprecedented risks. but also of tremendous prospects for the future. Why there is a tremendous prospect for the future? Because take this platform today, we are gathered more than 100 water experts, 100 personality in order to overview our really future of water management under all SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals that the international community has put in our hand, especially SDGs related to Nexus, SDG of water, 6 SDG of energy, and SDG of food. So we are all gathered in the world now in order to talk about the future of our planet. That is why in this context, the establishment of sustainable development in the world would depend on solution based on dialogue. Unfortunately, the dialogue actually is between hydropower, hyperpower, and the most fragile and vulnerable state. We need to think about this part of fragile and vulnerable state and start drawing the consequences of our work. The natural system is necessary for life. We are suffering of the consequences of global changes, of what many scientists consider to be the biggest challenge of our time, including the changes in our lifestyle, the changes in our consumption. Father Giuseppa presented the irrigation problem in Brazil. 64% of the renewable water goes to irrigation. But I would like to share with you some number concerning the MENA region, the Middle East and North Africa. 85% of water goes for irrigation because of lack of new technologies. 45% of the water of the MENA region comes from outside the MENA region, outside from transboundary water. And this is very important to establish peace among nations for the sake of our future generation. So we have also the population growth, the urbanization, the climate change, the repercussion on the hydrological behavior, the availability of the fresh water for human consumption and for sustainable development are accurately combined with effect of extreme climatic phenomenon. Yesterday in Paris, we had 50-degree in France of temperature. Can you imagine this extreme phenomenon and the consequences on the renewable water that we have in Europe? What about the Middle East? What about the MENA region? What about the arid region? So the arid region will be nations where we cannot live anymore. And there is a lot of interaction and a lot of simultaneous, hazardous, cascading, extreme situation. I add to this, the pandemic of COVID-19 has demonstrated the importance of science, the importance of research and technology, the importance of the need for cooperation altogether and for transparency. And water also, water sharing, water management needs a lot of cooperation, of transparency in all matter relating, sharing the data. It's highly important to share the data among countries, to share the data among transboundary water countries so that we can plan for future projects together. We cannot continue managing transboundary water without establishing data hub, without establishing nexus hub among transboundary nations. And also we need to share the lesson learned for the collective benefit of the international community. So we cannot say that the increasing space and the environmental changes that we are actually encountered and that are closely linked to the human behavior requires more knowledge on hydrology. And this is why, ladies and gentlemen, we have decided at UNESCO, at the Intergovernmental Hydrological Program, to draw within strategy number 9 for the next decade for 2022 till 2030, and which was approved by the Council yesterday after 3 days of talk and 2 years of preparation, we have entitled this strategy Science for a World Where Water Security is Ensured in a Changing Environment. We are living, ladies and gentlemen, in a changing environment, and we have defined within this strategy 5 priority areas that I wanted to share with you, and I urge you to strengthen all your forces, all your expertise, so that we can implement this strategy for the sake of humanity in the world. The first priority area is scientific research and innovation. Without our expert, without our researcher in our university, we will not be able to make processes for water in order to use non-conventional water and combine this non-conventional water to the conventional water that we have and mobilize enough water for humanity. Without innovation, we won't be able to pursue our task. Priority number 2 is the water education. And this is what you are all doing. And the centers that are affiliated to UNESCO and in your daily work, water education from the industrial revolution to the ecological revolution. We are shifting from a revolution that is quoted as pollution, that is quoted as destruction of the environment, to now a new revolution, how to protect the ecology of planet Earth. The third priority is how to bridge together the data knowledge gap. Each country, each expert, each university has to share the data with other countries, with other counterparts for the sake of humanity. Without exact data on climate change, we won't be able to draw adaptation plan. And UNESCO IHP is here with all the UN organization, UN water family, to share together the data and to create a very important data hub in order to face all global changes. The priority number 4, ladies and gentlemen, of the new IHP strategy, number 9, strategy for the next decade, is the inclusiveness concept of water management in a context of global change. And last priority is the science-based water governance for mitigation, adaptation, and resilience. We usually talk about governance in the institutional aspect only, but now we are obliged to marry governance to science. Without the science, governance has no meaning. Without the science, governance will not allow us to create the basin organization that has to gather all the stakeholders around the same table in order to discuss about our future objective and our future goals. This will help, ladies and gentlemen, all member states to advance in Agenda 2030 and to achieve the Sustainable Development Goal, in particular the water SDGs, as well as other global water programs such as the Paris Climate Agreement, the Sunday Framework for Disaster Risk. It's highly important to work on this platform and also the new agendas for cities. This process of our strategy is really innovative because it is related directly for the first time to 2 major documents. The first document is the operational implementation plan. That means we don't have only a strategy. We have an implementation mechanism. This is what we have voted on yesterday. And this implementation mechanism will make it possible to monitor the progress in the implementation of strategy number 9 of our IHP program through proposed actions and corresponding indicators. And the second document is the financial document that goes directly with strategy number 9. So this is the innovation of this new strategy. And I put all these experts that we have at the Division of Water at UNESCO with you to help you in order to implement this new water strategy, because we have an excellent know-how in our IHP water division, and we are all ready to help you. Ladies and gentlemen, people must not forget that water should link the people together. Water should be the survival resources of our generation. Today, our reflection could form a common basis for the consolidation of a dynamic process of sharing water resources in the world. Today, our gathering is highly important because it is the first international gathering that comes after the ratification of the UNESCO strategy number 9 for the next decade. Future prospects, ladies and gentlemen, will address the challenges, mitigate the adverse effect of unwanted competition over water, and promote effective resources management and create opportunities to cultivate a sustainable water peace among all the nations. Ladies and gentlemen, I tell you finally, please let's work all together with IHP, UNESCO program so that we can implement together this new water strategy for the sake of our future generation. Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to continue working with you, with our team at UNESCO. Thank you.
Professor Kumar, it was a pleasure to hear your statement, and you give us a roadmap, a very important roadmap for our scholars, our professors, and the students that are present here to try to go on this road. Now I'll pass the word to Father Josaphat. Father Josaphat has another commitment, so he will say some words to us. Father Josaphat, palavra é sua. O senhor está sem som, o senhor está sem... Pronto.
Muitas graças. Thank you very much. Bem, eu agora tenho daqui a pouco um compromisso da classe, não? Porque eu sou professor, então nós outros temos de dar classes. Então, vou permanecer um pouco mais com vós outros e depois vou a despedir-me porque tenho classes, ok? Graças.
Well, now it's my turn to address this meeting, this conference. The idea is to speak about our university, PUC-Rio, higher education, and the research towards the Sustainable Development Goals. What I want to do is to have a brief presentation, as we have so many important guests, important speakers, important people attending. I have to present you a little bit what we are and how we also participate strongly on the Sustainable Development Goals of UNESCO and United Nations. Próximo. Okay, this PUC is divided in academic centers and departments, and the divisions, we have 4 academic centers: Center of Theology and Human Science, the Center of Social Science, which I am the dean, the Center of Science and Technology, and the Center of Biology and Science of Health. And each of the center has bachelor programs. We have 46 bachelor programs, and from those 46, 40 courses are available in English, and we have 26 graduate research programs with doctoral degrees. So it's a very research-based university. We are a private institution, a communal institution, as we call in Brazil, but we also, próximo, por favor. Our campus is a very nice place in a very beautiful setting of Rio de Janeiro. We are in a very friendly, located near forest, close to the beach. It's also a pleasant green area with a stream running through. Its small monkeys and squirrels can be seen jumping up in the trees. So we are very, as Father Jofar is a biology specialist, a botanic specialist, we are very a very friendly and very warm and very sustainable location possible. It's very important to understand that we are a private non-profit communitarian institution. We are founded in 1940 with the objective of developing knowledge based on humanistic values. It's an academic institution recognized worldwide as one of the most important doctoral research centers in the country. Above all, PUC is a community of people who praise diversity and the plurality of ideas, united to act in accordance with the needs of society in the ever-changing world. So environmental awareness, social responsibility, diversity, three very important values of the UNESCO agenda are very important with us, but also we're very strong in innovation and very strong in entrepreneurship. This is a very important position that we have in this important rank of world universities in 2019. We're the first Brazilian university in internationalization. We're the first Brazilian university for research partnership with industry. And this is a position of our division of students. We have over 10,000 students, undergraduate students, over 2,500 graduate students, over 500 continuing education students. So it's not a big university in international terms or even in Brazil, but it's a very focused university in quality, in values, and with the leadership of the Catholic, with the social Jesuits fathers governing us. But it's very important, it's very important to stress that over 10% of our students are unprivileged students with affirmative action programs. So we select them by the quality of their knowledge, but we give them full scholarships. And over 40% of our students have also some type of scholarship. So it's a private university. We have research grants. We have some government support for the unprivileged students, but that is a very important part of our university. This is a very interesting program that we had. With COVID-19, some of those unprivileged students had now not good access to internet and also to laptop and the possibility of have access. So we started the program, and 633 students with 362 SLIM cards were distributed and 517 computers. And how we funded this program? We funded this program with professors, students, and society giving donations to the university. And it's very interesting because, as you can see, this is a map of Rio de Janeiro. Of course, this area where we have more students is this area on the south zone of the city. It's a more affluential area, but with a lot of slums, with a lot of communities, poor communities. So you can see that we have attended a lot of students which are unprivileged, very close to our university, but also we have a range of students that come from other areas far from the south area of the city. So I think this is a very, very important digital inclusion campaign that we started last year. We are continuing it, and we're helping those students because as we are working online, the student can have the same possibility of the students from a wealthy family to attend online courses. Awesome. This is very important. When we talk, now we're going to talk about the three main bases of UNESCO values: social responsibility, diversity, and social and environmental awareness. But it's important when we talk social responsibility of ECOA. ECO is a platform, and you can reach it by the link that is underneath the photo. ECO is a platform where all the important the things that are developed are in. Our conference will be tomorrow at this platform and can be seen by people that were not able to attend classes, conference. Everything is this platform. So we are very focused on the possibility of using social media, using this to put all the things for everyone. Now what we are going to see is some of the activities at the university that have to do with social responsibility. This is just one photo of a program, which I'll rank all the programs that we have. This is important, some of them in the area. Next. So now I'm not going to read all of them. You have the links over there. But what I present here is to some of them I'll just mention. For instance, Cátedra Sérgio Vieira de Mello. This is a UN-founded program in homage, in honor of Sérgio Vieira de Mello, was a Brazilian diplomat that was killed in Iraq by a bomb, and he was working for United Nations. And how we have a cátedra that discuss the relations of international relations. We have a lot of other, but I'm not going to read them. I'm just going to pass them to show you, and you can assess, all these important things that we do as I selected them for social responsibility. COVID-19 analytics is a very important platform that is taking data in Brazil and working with data in Brazil and showing to people how the COVID is developing in Brazil. Próximo. We have many others. I'm not going to take time of your time. We have other important persons to work. Próximo. Próximo. So you see, I just put some 18 different programs, but we have more of them, and you are able now to assess them if you want to get some more information. Now let's go to environmental awareness. Well, this, as Father Josaphat is our president, as we have all Laudato Si and the vision of Father of the Holy Francisco, we have a social sustainability agenda. We as I show you, the campus is very friendly. Próximo. And this is a very important international program. In the Geography and Environmental Studies Department in the Social Science Center, in my center, we have this very important program, which is an international program working on the sustainability project around the world. So I wanted just to put this photo to emphasize a very important national program that we have. Próximo. But also we have very important social programs in environmental awareness. This is a big, important program we have in a very poor area in Rio, and we work with sewage people that have to get their life working with sewage and trying to get some money on that. Próximo. Now we have environmental awareness. We have NIMA, the Núcleo Interdisciplinar de Meio Ambiente. This was founded by Father Josaphat. It's a very important international program working in Latin America, working with other universities, other Jesuit universities, and also, so this is a very important one. The second one also, the CPI is an international consortium of studies on several areas of the world, working on good practice and good programs on sustainability. And we have other programs, projects, and activities in this area. Now for the last one, próximo. Próximo. So diversity. What I can show you, which is very important, that we have affirmative action in Brazil and the social service department, which will be presenting some of the projects in the academic part. I have worked on several things. Próximo. And these are some of the documents, the books, and papers that we have produced in this area. Próximo. I have some of the important things that we have in this area. The NIREMA It's a nucleus that works on the African origin of Brazilian. A great part of Brazilian population is from African origin. So we have also this nucleus that works on that, and have other projects on this area. Okay, thank you very much. This was the idea. I have to thank those people that helped me to produce this presentation. But what's important was to try to show you a little bit what is PUC-Rio, one of the sponsors of this project, and one institution that will be together with you on working on this very important matter of the United Nations and UNESCO projects of sustainability. Thank you very much. Now I'll pass the word to Mr. Giuseppe Munassi, our good friend and co-sponsor of this program, of this event. Giuseppe, the floor is yours. Tem que botar o som, Giuseppe. The sound. The mic. Ah, he has the help of his daughter.
Yeah, of course. Technical help. So, Father Yosafa, good morning. I'm very happy to see you again after a long time. And a special thanks to President Fadi Comer, because thanks to him, we can hope to start an effective action in the area of water and connected issues related to the well-being. So thanks, President, for being with us. And also thanks to my new victim, Mr. Alexander Oste, who has guided me from UNESCO, who has guided me in this new initiative, where I have to admit is the first time that I see UNESCO really backing us. And when I say us, I make reference to our chair in India, in Mumbai. Is a chair on the dialogue, interreligious dialogue, intercultural dialogue. And we are running especially a course, a diploma on all the issues around water. But my interest, my idea is to develop our action also to the social issues, and that is why apparently the program is eclectical in the sense that has different topics, but I was told that when you listen a different voice in different topics, at the end the exchange of ideas stimulates new initiatives and make everybody aware that there is something as smart as we think we are. So the reason why, for example, I'm trying to involve also institutions which are not strictly linked to UNESCO is exactly because I believe that it's good to spread the work which UNESCO is doing every day through its division, be disseminated among people, institutions which don't have, it seems strange, but they don't have the opportunity to have access to the information from UNESCO. And I'm happy to, for example, to share with you the fact that I involved a special foundation in Pune, which is working, is a member of the World Water Council, but is eager to understand, to share the work of UNESCO. They are working in the field with the farmers, and they are doing an extraordinary work. Professor Comer was explaining us the importance of the research. In fact, that research to be effective must be brought to the field in a way or another. So we listed very often about the comfort, we have to take care of the welfare of people, but in reality, I think that there is no really application of the concept of solidarity. Solidarity, in my opinion, means that we have to think how really people, and especially poor people, can enjoy automatically opportunities. And but to enjoy opportunities, for example, you cannot afford to have a scarcity of water, because scarcity of water means that in the everyday life there are some disadvantages that for sure don't help the concentration of young people to study. For example, scarcity of water means also the problem of sanitation, and therefore we should, for example, think concretely what we can do it. That is why I am involved, for example, my friend, President Tosoyan, with whom I've been working in our ethics committee in Moscow, which I founded with the Orthodox Church, because it's important that the financial institutions think concretely to create a shelter, to create a place where poor young people can go and can enjoy a stable situation to concentrate in their studying. The university should also provide at that time some system to guarantee an adequate education, and also to open to the work world. Those words seems very in generally very common. We most of people like to speak about that, but I think that really solidarity means to draw the interest of people to concentrate in this in those issues. And I thank also the Miss Milagros in the name of the Foundation of Prince Albert for her contribution, because I believe that it's important to involve different institutions to concentrate on real issues. So I'm very happy to have all of you here, and I hope that I will have the chance to exploit your expertise in the future. By the way, we are organizing the second part of this web seminar in October 8th. So President Fadi saved this date, and we hope that for next time we will be even more productive. Will bring more fruitful results. Thank you to everybody.
Thank you, my friend Giuseppe. Now, as we have said, that it's very important to see the role of financial system in supporting those United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. We'll have the pleasure to have Dr. Tosoyan president of the Association of Russian Banks, and he'll be introduced by Mr. Oleg Paskin, that is here with us. Please, Mr. Oleg, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I hope you hear me well. What I have to say at the beginning, that the topic which was raised by our association, I mean the role of the financial system in achieving the UN Sustainable Development Goals, is not only directly related to the subject of this webinar of our today's conference, leaving no one behind, water and inequities, but it also deserves a serious independent study and collective discussion at all possible levels. Unfortunately, the president of the Central Russian Banks, Mr. Tosunyan, is currently absent. He is away and cannot talk to you live, but he gave the organizers the video of his speech, which will be shown. Mr. Tosunyan also asked me, as his vice president and board member of the Central Russian Banks and the co-author of this particular report, which is drawn to your attention, to make some final comments after the video, which we will now see, and to answer possible questions. So the floor is to the president of the Association of Russian Banks, Mr. Tosunyan. Can you put the video, please?
Уважаемые коллеги, несколько слов о роли финансовой системы в достижении целей устойчивого развития Организации Объединенных Наций.
The role of the financial system to achieve the Unsustainable Development Goals. The adoption by the United Nations General Assembly of the Sustainable Development Goals as a blueprint to achieve a better and more sustainable future for all, preceded by the approval of development goals set out in the Millennium Declaration. In September 2000, the leaders of all the United Nations member states and key international organizations have agreed to achieve 8 goals by 2015. These 8 goals were measured by 21 specific targets. Together, they made up the Millennium Development Goals, or MDGs. The solution of the most acute problems of the least developed countries was at the forefront. I'm talking about such as eradication of hunger and extreme poverty, reduction of child mortality and unemployment, prevention of epidemic diseases, and debt relief for the third world countries. Far from all and not everywhere these goals have been achieved. The main successes were in China and India. But in sub-Saharan Africa and some other regions, it's difficult to trade the chance for better, if there are any. In September 2015, the United Nations General Assembly semi-efficiently updated the MDGs by adopting the resolution Transforming Our World, the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. This document already contains 17 global goals and more than 1,500 relevant tasks, generally called Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs. It's their achievement by 2030 that should ensure the transformation of our world. The SDG program is approaching only the middle of the stated deadline, but the possibility of achieving its goals is already illusory. According to World Bank experts, it takes $2 or $3 trillion annually to achieve only Goal 1, no poverty, which they consider to be pure fantasy. Some of the goals, according to critics, smack of populism and are unlikely to be achieved by 2030. These are such goals as, for example, Zero Hunger, Goal 2, Good Health and Well-being, Goal 3, Quality Education, Goal 4, Clean Water and Sanitation, Goal 6, or Affordable and Clean Energy, Goal 7. This, at least in part, explains the fact that many forums are now discussing ESG standards, environmental, social and governance, more than SDGs. It's not just about the cost or the logics of the SDGs. The world has changed since the pandemic, and priorities are changing. Although many of the goals and targets set out in the MDGs have not lost their relevance. In particular, they need to develop an open, rule-based, non-discriminatory trading and financial system, as stipulated in the MDGs, doesn't decrease at all.
Обеспечение здорового образа жизни – это цель номер 3.
It's difficult to overestimate the role of the financial system in achieving the United Nations SDGs. But first of all, we must talk about the stability of the system itself at the global, regional and national levels. Overall, financial recovery is a prerequisite for achieving the SDGs. Given the avalanche of budget deficits and public debt in the G7 countries, it's hard to expect that they will allocate sufficient financial resources to solve the pressing problems of the least developed countries. Public-private partnership is of paramount importance as the only way to properly finance large-scale projects and programs to achieve the SDGs. But the hasty implementation of common ESG standards around the world is likely to become counterproductive. The initiative to develop unified ESG standards was put forward in 2019 by Brian Moynihan, CEO of Bank of America and the chairman of the International Business Council, the World Economic Forum, WEF. The idea was immediately picked up by the Big Four of accounting firms, Ernst & Young, Deloitte, PricewaterhouseCoopers and KPMG. The white paper on unified market-driven ESG metrics appeared in record time, and the Davos WEF proposed a program for their promotion and approval. The current Italian presidency in Business 20, B20, has actively joined the promotion of ESG. In the process of preparing new recommendations for global leaders, the ESG topic clearly prevails over the CGGS, which are mentioned in passing and time to time. And perhaps it's not so far from replacing the SDGs with ESG standards. Meanwhile, the impact of ESG on the achievement of the SDGs is far from unambiguous and requires deep reflection, not only by businessmen and politicians, but also in scientific circles. The global ESG standards proposed by the WEF alongside the Big Four are likely to have a negative impact on the positions of the least developed countries and emerging market economies, as well as on SMEs involved in foreign trade, cross-border cooperation and operations on the international capital market. Due to the lack of forces and resources for urgent transformation or enterprises and entire industries on the ESG principles in the near future, many will face problems. They may be with export of their products that buyers in the developed economies may consider not green enough. Special funds are also being prepared for such products. Financial difficulties await borrowers whose projects will not pass the test for full compliance with the ESG terms and conditions, and for the so-called dirty industries, international financial centers may be closed. It's hard to say how the energy needs of underdeveloped nations will be met. About 1 billion people do not know any other source of energy except open fire. And due to what will there be a substantial improvement in the socio-economic living conditions in the poorest countries and an acceleration of their development. With regard to the SDGs financing, the example of a new large-scale special drawing rights SDRs emission, but distributed in the old way, is very indicative. In principle, the International Monetary Fund (IMF) approved the issuance of another SDR 650 billion. That is significantly higher than the total amount of SDRs emission over the past decades. Of this amount, developing countries and emerging market economies will receive SDR 2,074 billion, while half will go to G7 countries that are already spending money. And there is a lot to think about on the topic of using the capabilities of the international financial system to achieve the United Nations SDGs. In future, special studies and conferences may be devoted to issues of international collaboration in the development and implementation of the updated Millennium Goals, including within the framework of events dedicated to the 300th anniversary of the Russian Academy of Science. There is need for a comprehensive scientific and practical rethinking of all the development goals and the timing of their achievement, taking into account the real situation and new balance of forces and resources, including financial ones. And this webinar of ours can be an important step towards solving the most important problems of the millennium.
Финансовые ресурсы. И этот наш вебинар может стать важным шагом по пути к решению важнейших проблем тысячелетия. Спасибо.
So, ladies and gentlemen, in the speech of the president of the Association of Russian Banks, a call was made for international collaboration in development and implementation of the updated Millennium Goals, for comprehensive rethinking of all the development goals and the timing of their achievement, taking into account the real situation which we have today, the new balance of forces and resources. We are ready to discuss this issue both in substance and in a form with all the interested parties. As a matter of fact, such a discussion has already begun. I am referring to the, for example, the joint declaration being prepared by the leaders of the BRICS Business Council, which is called the Business Cooperation Towards Achieving Sustainable Development Goals. It's now being discussed in all the chapters and is finalized. But this two-page document is quite important, and I will read in a few days, hopefully to share it with all the participants of today's webinar. We can certainly make a worthy contribution to the common cause after a proper consideration of the issues raised. This topic deserves the attention of the relevant United Nations bodies. As you just heard, this webinar of ours can be an important step towards solving the most important issues and problems of the millennium. And now I'm ready to answer. The call is really to reconsider the nowadays sustainable development goals, taking it into account the new real existing situation. And the water problems, very important, and one of the most important, is just one of the issues which should be reconsidered in order to have a real result in their resolution in securing the clean and sustainable supply of water to all the mankind. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Perkins. It's very important that we maintain collaboration and with the Russian Banking Federation for the ideas that can be developed after this conference and the next one in October that we are also preparing with the leadership of Professor Conner. I think now we could pass the word to Mr. Alexander Otte. Mr. Alexander is Associate Program Specialist, Division of Water Science of Natural Science Sector in UNESCO, and he'll be talking to us of the social dimensions and cultural values of water. Mr. Otte, thank you very much, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I'm extremely honored. Thank you to PUC and to the UNESCO chair of St. Andrews College in Mumbai. Giuseppe Musumeci has been pulling this together from our side really in as mastermind and with a very able hand. So we're extremely happy that UNESCO has been put at the forefront of this discussion that is at the heart of the work of the water programs that UNESCO is running. We have two of them, both driven by the Division of Water Sciences, and I'm switching on my PowerPoint presentation, hoping that this works smoothly. You have heard, and I'm extremely pleased that we had the capacity to invite, that you had the capacity to invite Ms. Fadi Komer, who has been now the chairperson of the International Intergovernmental Hydrological Program since 2019. And he has been excellently summarizing the work that IHP is doing and will be doing in the coming 8 years. It's indeed an endeavor that's based on all what we have been hearing in these introductory speeches. I will, with the help of our great colleagues of the second UNESCO Water Program, the World Water Development or World Water Assessment Program, I will present some elements from the World Water Development Reports that are publications UNESCO publishes on behalf of UN Water, meaning the platform of agencies within and programs of the UN system that work on issues related to water and are covering basically all the aspects that have been mentioned so far. Those reports condense the knowledge at the time of their appearance. So they are yearly reports, and I had the honor to contribute to two of them recently, the one on leaving no one behind and on valuing water, respectively from 2019 and 21. Both fit beautifully not only to the subject today, but also to each other. The 2020 report could have very well filled in as well here, because it's on climate change, water and climate change, and has basically been confirming the tendencies that we have been observing and that we have been hearing about. But let me go first over the questions of inequalities with regard to water and sanitation that we have been observing, and also some means to overcome them, which will echo what we have also just been hearing from the Russian representatives. First of all, we have to state that the questions we are talking about have already been enshrined in international law. Basically, the ethics that we have been hearing about that should be driving our action towards water has already crystallized internationally in the human rights to water and sanitation. It has been inscribed in the human rights that everyone has the right to safe and clean drinking water and sanitation. And it has also been recognized that it is essential for the full enjoyment of life and all human rights. So it is something that has a very solid founding in the international community. And this implementation, the implementation of this right, is what we are currently talking about. The other issue we have been mentioning are the Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs. The Sustainable Development Goals that aim in 17 distinct goals to solve the world's most urgent problems. Again, as we have just heard before, it is a decision of the international community to tackle those issues, to eradicate, for instance, poverty, and to provide water and sanitation to everyone by 2030. Indeed, we are close to halfway through the, or will be soon halfway through the implementation phase of those SDGs. And this means that we are really to accelerate our action in this regard. In particular, also with regard to SDG 6 on water. Clean water and sanitation, however, is interestingly one of the targets related to something that is required for all of the SDGs, because none of them can be reached if there is not sufficient safe water for everyone. Water is part of all production processes. It's part of everyday life. It's what brings us food, safety, that keeps us alive. And not only us, but the entire rest of the living world depends on water. So there is no wonder that, to come to the title of the presentation, that water is also part of culture, that it has become, over time, enshrined in all cultural settings, in heritage, that it's something that has totally permeated our daily habits, our behaviors, and in fact, yes, the value systems. So what I would like to do is to show you a few more elements that came from this report from 2019. So first of all, with regard to inequalities, you will see that there are still billions left behind in access to water and sanitation. So as I said, the targets are far from being close to being achieved. So we will need really to step up action. It's a matter of investment. It's a matter of political engagement, of commitment. And it's also a matter of community involvement and community engagement. And it's also a matter of education, especially also in the vocational sector, vocational education and training, but also in higher education. And I'm extremely grateful for the university to organize an event like this, which might help also showcase to students who are not necessarily involved in the water sector to what extent it is important to work on water issues. Then what I would like to underline with regard to the inequalities is that we are dealing with socio-economic dimensions of water that on the one hand have indeed the question of who is being left behind, who is subject to inequalities, and on the other hand, to consider those people who are as well as the beneficiaries of actions that will multiply the positive effects that can be sustained through advantageous water programs, in particular aimed at vulnerable people. Because as we have seen, since all development goals are related to water, bringing water to those who have little or not enough and sanitation is actually carrying out a huge function, a huge benefit for all of society, because it can solve at the same time issues of housing, issues of sound workplaces. It creates jobs. There is another World Water Development Report on jobs. It creates jobs. It's one of the investment areas with the highest return in medium term to long run within a society. And of course, it's an ethical obligation. And it's a human right, as we have seen, because that ethical obligation to solidarity has been enshrined in the human rights. So if you look a bit closer, who currently is being left behind in the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goal on water, we can easily see that we have a number of groups that are particularly vulnerable, or at least endangered of not being sufficiently considered. There are the young people, there are elderly people, there are disabled people or people with disabilities, there are indigenous peoples, there are the rural, especially the rural poor, and there is half of the population of the world that in general has a lesser extent access to water, and those are the women. So in the end, we come to a mix of world population, as we have also heard before, that is not only spread over the globe, but that really concerns a huge number of persons. And again, the problem can become a solution and a benefit if we reinforce the interaction also between those groups, and if we reinforce the community solidarity towards them. This report 2019 had the following takeaway messages. So first of all, of course, the human rights. We have also to see that besides being left behind, the poorer populations often pay currently a higher price for services of similar or lesser quality. We see that whatever recommendations and actions are taken, they need to be tailored for specific target groups, while at the same time looking at the cohesion of societies. We see that we have, for equitable access to water, irrigation, that has also been mentioned by our chairperson, Fadi Komer, have that irrigation can make a huge difference in terms of livelihoods of farmers, and of course increase agricultural production and food security. We have the issue of mass displacements due to, on the one hand, water-related crises, climate-related water crisis, and on the other hand, the pressure that can grow through the displacement of the populations on the local water resources. And finally, we see that it makes good economic sense, and that good governance is in fact the key to overcoming what currently could be vested interests and exclusionary practices where they exist. So what goes very nicely with the report from 2019 is the fact that we have to consider how the current schemes of managing and governing water are related to the value that is attributed to water. Because ignoring the value of water is in fact the main cause of wasting water and of misusing it. The main findings of the report were simple. Water has multiple values to very many people in a very different way. The approaches to valuing water depend totally on user dimensions and perspectives. Not valuing water in all its different uses is a root cause, or depending on the perspective, a symptom of the political neglect of water and its mismanagement. And recognizing, measuring, and expressing water's multiple values, meaning transferring it into a scientifically perceptible and transmittable form, is extremely difficult, but fundamental to achieving sustainable and equitable water resource management. We had already a presentation on the questions that pertain to the resource as such, but just to see that the per capita withdrawals are truly skyrocketing since several decades, and that this is not a question that we simply can wait out. But I would like to come to those cultural perspectives. We have seen that there are multiple values of water, which are exemplified here through those emblems, which are for food, for ecosystems, energy production, industry, financing, and safety and hygiene, which has become obviously an issue particularly well visible during the COVID crisis. We have identified in this report as the multiple values precisely those issues and those values. So the question that appears of particular interest to me, because it is also something that is perhaps less regarded currently in the water world, but increasingly recognized, is that water has cultural values that are in fact at the heart of our ways we behave, our ways we approach water, we consider water, the ethic we have, personal ethic or also collective ethic, and depending on the culture. And we can see that the prominent component in heritage values, for instance, in religious rites, in simply patterns of behavior within a society can really not be underestimated. If you think about it, ourselves personally, we will always find ourselves in a personal relationship with water in one way or another. We have our habits with it. And it's something that is scaled up through all of society. So it is that relationship that we need to reach in order to truly reconsider also our actions with regard to water. We have, in fact, here a scheme that's perhaps not as legible as I would like it, but it's a conceptual framework of how to value, for instance, cultural ecosystem services and cultural ecosystem services related to water, because the biophysical domain to which water belongs in our world has so many interrelations with the different ways we're interacting with it, that they truly need their own framework of analysis, which is not very much developed for the time being. So I will stop here. I will just want to invite you to look closely at the World Water Development Reports. This presentation will also be sent to the organizers and also is of course available in the video, but you will be able through also the executive summaries of the sustainable development, of the World Water Development Reports, you will be able to look into more depth in the issues that I've been highlighting here. And yes, with this, I would like to thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Otte. I think we had a very important presentation and a very broad presentation that introduced us, to the second part of our seminar with Mr. Otte, global vision and stressing the value of water, and a very truthful study that he has presented us. I think now we will go to the second part. But before going to the second part, which are specific problems related by scholars from Brazil, India, and Congo, I will have also a vision of what is happening with water in the development world, because our next speaker, Dr. Milagros Couchot, is the president of honor of the Mediterranean Institute of Water, and a member of the Scientific Technical Committee of the Foundation Prince Albert II of Monaco. And she will be speaking, before we get to the specifics of the development world, the emerging world, emerging countries, she will be speaking of the management of water imbalance in the Mediterranean and the floodings and the consequence of the flooding. So, Professor Dr. Milagros, please, the floor is yours, and thank you for your presence here in this seminar.
Saludo especial à doutora Milagros. Saludo.
Father Josaphat is making a special
Gracias.
thanks for you.
Gracias. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup. On a dit qu'on parle en français, au foie de l'espagnol, que c'est ma langue, parce que je suis espagnol. Mon nom, c'est français, mais je suis de l'Espagne, bien sûr. Alors, les premières choses, merci pour pouvoir être ici, pour pouvoir apprendre chaque fois plus, écoutant à les gens d'UNESCO. J'ai travaillé beaucoup avec le PHI de formation. Et bien, merci surtout à Youssef Boussoumessi qui m'a appelé, qui a demandé à la Fondation Prince Albert de Monaco d'être présent ici. Alors, on parle de l'eau dans le monde, on parle le problème de vraiment n'équiter personne des côtés. dans l'aspect de l'eau et surtout les inégalités de l'eau. Je pense qu'on doit penser un peu à la Méditerranée parce que la Méditerranée, c'est comme un exemple, c'est comme un laboratoire quand on parle de l'eau. Pendant 1000, pas siècles, 1000 ans, la culture dans cette région du monde où il y a 3 continents, où il y a 22 pays différents, avec beaucoup d'inégalités, je pense que c'est important de pouvoir le présenter comme un point de réflexion sur tout cet très, très bon séminaire. Mes félicitations, vraiment mes félicitations à l'université, à l'UNESCO, pour avoir mettre sur la table une question comme ça. On va voir si ça marche, si on peut compartir ce que je... Je compare la pantalla. On va voir si on peut ouvrir. C'est bien, vous pouvez le voir.
C'est très bien.
Comme je dis, on va voir le Méditerranée, le pays de la Méditerranée comme un exemple, je pense, que très intéressant, parce que ce n'est pas nouvelle pour ce pays, pour cette région du monde, cet déséquilibre. Vous pouvez les maps, et c'est comme s'ils sont 2 régions différentes. Le nord, où il pleut, où il y a une température plus calibre, plus suave, et le sud, où il y a le grand désert de le Sahara, et la température et la pluie n'existent. On parle qu'on doit faire vraiment la gestion de l'eau, mais tout le temps je dis, pour faire la gestion avant, il doit avoir de l'eau. Il manque l'eau, alors on ne peut pas faire gestion de l'eau. Et dans la Méditerranée, dans beaucoup de pays, il n'y a pas de l'eau. Alors on doit commencer pour trouver l'eau, pour voir de quelque façon on peut apporter l'eau pour les gens. Parce qu'il y a, dans ces moments-là, avec toutes les traditions que dans la Méditerranée, il y a pour la gestion de l'eau, il y a un changement que je préfère jamais appeler changement global. Parce que ce n'est pas seulement un changement climatique. Il y a un changement climatique, économique, démographique, politique, culturel, urbanistique. Alors, c'est les grands changements qui se produisent dans ces régions d'une façon aussi importante, plus importante que dans le reste de l'Europe et peut-être que dans le reste de le monde. Et sur ce changement, ils mettent la crise de le Covid. Alors, il fait 200 où vraiment, dans la Méditerranée, c'est très, très difficile la vie. C'est pour ça qu'il y a le numéro de morts. Et notre mare, les mares méditerranéennes, Mare Nostrum, comme l'appelle le romain, et c'est dans ces moments les mares de la mort. C'est terrible, mais ça, c'est une chose que nous devons voir. On va réfléchir avant de commencer les données que j'ai. Dans ces régions, il y a plus de 500 millions de personnes qui sont affectées pour ce changement que je viens de vous dire. Un changement spécifique de le climat de la Méditerranée. Il y a la grande sécheresse dans beaucoup de périodes de l'année. Et il y a d'autre côté les grandes inondations. Il tombe la pluie de façon comme dans beaucoup de pays, mais dans pas beaucoup de temps. Il y a aussi le réchauffement global, la température qu'avant il y a 1-2 périodes critiques de chaud. Non, dans ces moments, le chaud, c'est pendant 1-2 mois complètement dans l'été. Il y a la grande contamination de la Méditerranée et il y a tout le monde, il va à la côte pour vivre. C'est une grande incroissance de la population côtière. Alors, si on arrive urgent à trouver des solutions et appliquer les solutions à ces régions, avant de l'année 24-25, il peut être qu'on arrive à que la moitié de la population de la Méditerranée, 250 millions de personnes, on arrivera à la pauvreté extrême. Pour les problèmes essentiels, c'est le stress hydrique. Alors, c'est vraiment cette manque d'eau, c'est vraiment cette extrémité que c'est en Grèce de chaque jour un peu plus, qui nous va porter à la région de la Méditerranée à une allée au dehors sur la vie et sur la qualité de vie des gens. Ah, on a perdu ça. Pardon. On a perdu.
Nós podemos tentar ajudá-la.
Je ne sais pas pourquoi on a perdu la page.
On va essayer de... Parce qu'on a votre présentation.
Vous pouvez la trouver?
Oui, on a et on peut présenter.
Je ne sais pas pourquoi j'ai perdu, si tout il marche très bien.
Non, on peut faire ça. On peut...
Oui, et je vous dis...
Si vous repassez sur votre présentation,
Non, on a déjà. Luciana, a gente consegue passar, botar a apresentação dela?
Sim, sim.
Vous avez la présentation?
Yes, on a. Vous avez nos on va présenter. Juste un moment. Just a minute, we have the presentation and we'll be...
Pendant qu'on arrive à la présentation, je peux vous parler sur les...
It's always happened. No problem at all. We'll have it and we'll just in a few moments we'll be putting the yes. Okay. Não, essa ainda é a minha.
Só minutinho, desculpa.
No problem. So we have...
parce que sinon je commence.
No, this is look. This is what happens on all these Zoom presentations, all the Zoom seminars.
C'est Luciana qui m'a fait l'appui. Merci, Luciana. Tu peux aller à les aspects spécifiques de la Méditerranée.
Luciana não tá entrando inteira, hein? Tá entrando cortada.
Só minutinho de novo. Eu vou tentar. Consegue ver?
Tá cortada.
Je ne sais pas si vous pouvez le voir, mais moi non.
Não tá inteira.
Vou recomeçar, só minuto.
Tá. She'll put it again because it was not the full presentation.
Pendant qu'il arrive, je peux vous parler des aspects, parce que c'est... Non, je peux vous dire les aspects spécifiques de la Méditerranée. Peut-être que beaucoup d'entre vous les connaissent, mais c'est une région très aride.
Un moment, on avait le temps. On avait le temps. Il n'y a pas de pressé.
Je ne sais pas pourquoi. Il marche bien. Je sais pas
là, il est là.
Ah, ça c'est très bien. Alors, je vous dis, c'est une région...
Merci.
Merci, Luciana, merci. Alors, c'est une région, comme je viens de vous dire, très, très aride, où il n'y a pas de ressources dans beaucoup d'espaces de cette région, même pour assurer les suministres de la population et surtout la croissance économique. On vient de le dire, notre ami d'UNESCO, s'il n'y a pas de l'eau, il n'y a pas de croissance. Alors, c'est difficile de développer les pays quand il n'y a pas de l'eau. Et dans la région méditerranéenne, la distribution, c'est très, très irrégulière. C'est irrégulière dans le temps, c'est irrégulière dans l'espace et dans la quantité. C'est pour ça que se produit les deux grandes catastrophes de notre région, que c'est les sécheresses d'un côté, pendant une période, quelquefois des années, et les inondations, dans quelques moments, qui arrivent à la mort de beaucoup de gens et de populations. L'autre problème que je veux le voir aussi, c'est l'augmentation massive de la population, et surtout dans des périodes concrètes. À l'été, par exemple, il y a 10 fois plus de personnes dans un petit village, dans l'île Méditerranée, de la Grèce, de l'Espagne, de l'Italie. Elle double 3 fois de personnes qui demandent de l'eau. Et à l'hiver, non, il n'y a pas besoin. Alors, si tu vas faire de grandes infrastructures par une période très courte, 2 mois, on doit penser vraiment s'il doit employer l'argent pour ça. Et les changements climatiques, comme je viens de vous dire, c'est dans ces régions plus accentué, plus grave que dans le reste de l'Europe. Tu peux changer. Tu peux changer. Cette problématique, comme je vous dis, il fait beaucoup de temps que dans la région il y a, mais il y a des solutions. Dans ces moments, le pays a fait un effort, on s'appuie les unes les autres, il y a beaucoup d'associations, il y a beaucoup d'échanges de connaissances, d'échanges d'expertise, des forums méditerranéens, les entreprises qui travaillent les unes les autres dans les pays. Il y a des solutions. Il y a des solutions technologiques, il y a des solutions de gouvernance, de gestion, et il y a aussi des solutions basées sur l'éducation et sur la conscientisation pour connaître vraiment comment il doit faire et qu'est-ce qu'on doit faire. La première de tout, c'est qu'on doit considérer l'eau comme un bien public, comme un bien de tout le monde. Il ne doit être pensé comme avant quelqu'un, on pense que l'eau, c'est la propriété d'un groupe ou la propriété d'une part ou d'une entreprise. On doit faire aussi des solutions intégrées. Intégrer d'un côté les ressources conventionnelles, non conventionnelles, nouveaux systèmes d'énergie, les ressources qui viennent de la surface, les souterrains, aussi les nouvelles technologies, des aliments, de la réutilisation des eaux et adapter cette solution d'une façon intégrée. On doit aussi planifier au niveau des bassins, c'est très important. Prendre les bassins comme unité de gestion. Comme vient de dire notre ami Fadi aussi, c'est les façons, parce que c'est transfrontalière, parce que c'est l'unité naturelle de la rivière et on doit faire la gestion, avoir en compte la rivière comme unité de gestion. Et l'un pays avec les autres, mais tout ensemble, c'est les façons de considérer la gestion de l'eau. On va voir rapidement, parce que je pense qu'il n'y a pas beaucoup de temps, tu peux me passer quelques exemples dans deux pays qu'il trouve des solutions historiques. Tu peux me changer. Je prends l'exemple de quelques pays parce que, de mon point de vue, ils sont très intéressants. L'une, c'est la Tunisie. La Tunisie entretient les structures millénaires qu'il y a de le temps de l'Europe romain et de le Moyen-Âge. Il a pris comme base de son développement, de son planification à l'horizon 25 ans, tout qu'il existe déjà fait, tout ce qu'on a fait, les anciennes ingénieurs responsables d'apporter l'eau à la région. Et alors, il maintient tout ça, il a fait interconnexion entre tout, d'un côté les barrages, d'autre côté les canaux et les transferts d'eau de le nord du pays à le sud où il se trouve le désert. Alors, c'est un exemple d'interconnexion et de développement avec les nouvelles technologies, les dessalements, tout l'eau, toutes les ressources, ils sont apportés à un système national pour pouvoir répondre à la demande de tout le monde. Passez, s'il vous plaît. L'Égypte, c'est un pays aussi millénaire avec des solutions de l'étang de son empire méditerranéen. Mais je vous montre seulement des exemples. Ici, d'un côté, c'est le grand maître en irrigation le lac de Nasser, où il a fait la construction des canaux pour porter l'eau des lacs, pour faire irrigation et pour pouvoir vraiment alimenter la population, parce que l'eau, c'est la vie, et c'est la vie pour l'agriculture, et il a arrivé à apporter dans toute cette sous-région 2220 hectares de période de surface d'irrigation. D'autres, c'est le transfert de l'eau, un transfert très intéressant de 250 km pour porter l'eau à la péninsule et à les déserts de Sinaï. C'est deux exemples aussi de cette lutte des pays. La suivante. L'autre pays que je vous montre, le suivant, c'est l'Algérie. Changez. Non, avant la France, il y a une autre. C'est l'Algérie avant. Bien. L'Algérie, L'Argélie, c'est le pays le plus sèche, où il y a le désert le plus grand, et il a fait aussi les transferts d'eau les plus longs. Il porte l'eau de la région des lacs, de l'eau souterraine, grand réservoir d'eau souterraine qui se trouve à 2000 km de la cité d'Alger. Il les porte jusqu'à le désert, où il se trouve son grand système de vie, le pétrole, tous les camps de pétrole, les champs de pétrole et tout ça. Alors, ces grands transferts qui sont 750 km, alors c'est magnifique de point de vue il a fait la reconstruction, la nouvelle vie pour tout ce petit village où il n'y a pas de l'eau, où il n'y a pas d'irrigation possible, il y a la pauvreté le plus grand. Alors, dans ces moments, on a développé d'irrigation, de nouveaux systèmes de distribution de eau dans la ville, d'assainissement et de tout ça. Le suivant, c'est la France. Je prends un pays de l'Europe, qui pour moi, c'est comme dans l'Espagne, peut-être les deux pays où il y a moins de l'eau dans le sud de la France et dans l'est de l'Espagne. C'est pour ça qu'il y a développé plus de technologies de dessalement, plus de technologies de transfert d'eau, plus de technologies, surtout, et le plus important, de réutilisation des eaux usées. Et je montre les canaux de Provence, qui c'est un exemple de technologie, un exemple de distribution de l'eau pour les villages, pour l'irrigation, pour la gestion intégrée des ressources. Pour moi, France, c'était intéressant, c'est un modèle aussi d'intégration. Il a établi des canaux entre les huit rivières, grandes rivières qu'il y a dans la France. Ils sont tous connectés par canal. Tu peux aller d'une à d'autres rivières et tu peux faire les connexions pour profiter mieux l'eau d'une rivière à une autre. Il y a un grand canal aussi qui met en contact la Méditerranée avec l'Atlantique. C'est le canal du Midi. Quelqu'un de vous, je pense que vous le connaissez. Et pour finir, le simple, je vais mettre l'île de Malta, le suivant. Les suivants, s'il vous plaît. Malta, c'est une île méditerranée. Comme tous les îles méditerranéennes, c'est sèche, il n'y a pas de l'eau, il n'y a pas de rivière. Il tombe la pluie quelquefois. Alors, c'est de système centenaire de pouvoir garder l'eau. C'est les cisternes. Encore, il reste beaucoup de monuments néolithiques pour garder l'eau quand il tombe la pluie. Et les systèmes qui sont construits dans l'Europe, tout ça. Et alors, si vous faites quelqu'un le tourisme, c'est très intéressant. Mais c'est une des îles où il a développé aussi le nouveau système. Parce que, comme je viens de vous dire, le suivant, s'il vous plaît, pas seulement dans les pays méditerranéens, dans la région, on s'appuie en son histoire et son expertise pour gérer l'eau et pour travailler, pour maintenir l'eau dans les barrages, pour les transferts d'un côté à un autre avec des infrastructures. C'est, je pense, une région très innovative, avec des solutions de le XXe siècle. C'est pour ça qu'on va voir, pour finir ma présentation de la Méditerranée, avec toutes les problématiques. Passez, s'il vous plaît. Un nouveau système pour concevoir et construire en s'appuyant, basé à la nature, au fois contre la nature. Alors, dans ce moment, dans le XXe siècle, notre culture méditerranéenne, chaque fois les pays, ils développent plus en plus cet processus naturel, sans une attaque aussi lue à la nature. C'est pour ça que fait préserver un peu les systèmes de gestion et les systèmes de développer solutions avec outils qui sont un peu une copie de la nature. Comme il fait la nature pour porter l'eau, comme il fait la nature pour garder l'eau dans le temps, bien, on fait un réservoir qui soit les choses les plus pareilles à un temps de la nature naturelle. On fait un conduit d'eau comme si soit dans la ville, pas une chose lourde de béton, c'est une chose verte, et les jardins verticaux, alors tous ces systèmes que deviennent des outils naturels. Une très, très importante question, les prochaines, qu'on a développée dans la Méditerranée, je pense que c'est essentiel pour la planification, résoudre les problèmes de quand il y a grande sécheresse ou quand il y a des inondations. Les prochains, s'il vous plaît, c'est connaître vraiment les problèmes qu'il y a avec deux systèmes de mesure. Combien il a dit Fadi Kamer un peu, il a posé cette question. Il doit vraiment avoir système de mesure pour connaître vraiment combien d'eau il y a, où il se trouve l'eau. De quelque façon, c'est les plus économiques. Bien doit faire de salement, bien doit faire des transferts d'eau avec de grands systèmes de transfert. Il doit faire de barrages, il doit faire d'autres choses qu'on peut utiliser, mais avant de faire tout ça, il doit caractériser les problèmes. Il doit caractériser pour avoir un contrôle en temps réel de la situation. Combien d'eau il y a dans chaque pays? Qu'est-ce qu'on peut faire pour obtenir l'eau avant de penser en gérer l'eau? Première chose, avoir de l'eau. Et quand il vient l'eau, parce qu'il vient, il plaît. Il y a et la Méditerranée, c'est pas comme le Sahara ou le centre de l'Afrique. Dans la Méditerranée, quelquefois, il pleut. Mais il pleut d'une façon incontrôlée. Et il pleut dans une pause ou une attente. Alors, il doit avoir des infrastructures pour garder l'eau. Il doit avoir de développement d'outils de software et de hardware potentiel pour pouvoir garder ces eaux et l'employer et optimiser les solutions. Parce que dans chaque point, dans chaque place, il aura une solution différente. On ne peut faire les copies l'une les autres de la même façon. Chaque pays, chaque région, chaque point, peut-être qu'il y a une solution différente. C'est pour ça qu'on doit appliquer tous ces outils qui aujourd'hui sont développés pour la digitalisation et avoir ce système de grand système de données pour pouvoir prendre des décisions. Un dernier point changé, c'est pour parler un mot sur les prochaines, s'il vous plaît, sur l'économie circulaire, parce que si on ne parle pas de l'économie circulaire, on pense qu'on a fini bien un speech. Alors, je pense qu'on doit, l'économie circulaire, en essence, c'est aller de les ressources à les ressources. On doit transformer tous les ressources et aussi dans tout ce système de traitement de l'eau, de chercher l'eau, d'obtenir l'eau. Il y a toute une quantité importante de ressources. Alors, on doit voir de quelque façon toute cette ressource, de le plan de traitement, on peut les transformer en biogaz, en boue, en choses qui sont des matériaux utiles pour pouvoir développer d'autres systèmes d'obtention d'eau. Et on finit déjà, le dernier, s'il vous plaît, l'autre. Et c'est les conclusions à laquelle on arrive en référence à la Méditerranée, comme je viens de vous dire. C'est depuis il s'adaptait à son caractéristique géoclimatique. Il fait beaucoup de siècles et il a développé des solutions imaginatives à son problème de manque d'eau. Bien sûr, il a l'habitude de faire une bonne gestion de l'eau. Les Romains, les Arabes, tous les grands pays et cultures qu'on a passé par la Méditerranée, on a développé système pour faire une bonne gestion de l'eau, surtout parce qu'il n'y a pas beaucoup. Alors, c'est pour ça. Et il a développé de bons systèmes pour contrôler l'eau, pour transporter l'eau et pour faire des systèmes d'irrigation utiles. Ils sont dans cette ligne. Ils doivent travailler ensemble, beaucoup plus encore, mais il a avancé. Et il s'appuie sur les trois choses que je pousse un peu. C'est l'observation, regarder les problèmes, regarder la situation, mesure, on doit employer système de mesure, on doit développer infrastructure pour connaître la situation et prédire. Alors, regarder, mesure, prédire. Et pour prédire, il y a besoin de connaître bien tout ce système de prendre des décisions, de planification, tous les modèles qu'il y a dans ce moment, d'intelligence artificielle. On peut vraiment prédire des solutions, le mieux décision. Mais avant de prendre une décision, on doit connaître, bien sûr, le problème. Et je pense que dans les pays de la Méditerranée, dans ces moments, sont dans cette ligne, dans les lignes de la connaissance, dans la ligne de l'échange de cette connaissance et dans la ligne de pouvoir gagner la lutte contre la sécheresse et l'inondation. Merci beaucoup. La dernière.
Thank you.
La dernière.
Thank
Merci
you, Dr.
pour
Milagros. It was a wonderful presentation, and as I said, a very important introduction to what we are going to have now, the specific problems of Brazil, India, and Africa. As those presentations are on video, I would just make the introduction telling which is the professor that is going to present the video, the presentation. So now for the first one in the water inequalities, we have Mr. Anil Patil, chairman of Maharashtra Vikas Kendra in Pune, India. He will present the role of water management in poverty reduction. Please, let's have the video.
Namaskar, good morning and good day to everyone. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to share my views on most important topic in this international conference, water and inequalities, that is the role of water management in poverty reduction. I would like to express my gratitude towards Advocate Guzape, who is the UNESCO chairperson of the UNESCO chair of St. Andrews College, Mumbai, India, and also the organizers of this international conference on water and inequalities. United Nations Millennium Development Declaration and Resolution at the World Summit on Sustainable Development, which was held in 2002, gave high priority to poverty reduction in the international development agenda. It is widely recognized that water resources development and management play a fundamental role in a sustainable growth and poverty reduction. Management of water resources is the key for long-lasting sustainable developments. India has 2% of the land, 4% of the total available water in the world, and about 17% population of the world resides in India. Most of the available water is being used for agriculture. The ultimate irrigation potential of the country has been assessed at 140 million hectares. So, agriculture with its allied sectors is the largest source of livelihoods in India. 70% of its rural households depends primarily on agriculture for their livelihoods, and 82% of the farmers being small and marginal. So, water management plays a vital role in poverty reduction. It is shown that the past investments in irrigation development have made significant contribution in alleviating poverty. It is impact of the investments on water resources development and management, especially in irrigation, on poverty reduction. However, investments in water resources development which were considered on a high priority by government in last 3 decades have been fallen drastically. Less investments, pollution due to rapid urbanization and industrialization are affecting on poverty issues. Considering the multiple issues Government of India has announced National Water Policy in 1987, and it was reviewed in 2002. Since water is the state issue in our country, state governments are asked to frame their water policies and by the state, and our state Maharashtra has announced water policy in 2002. It is becoming helpful for water resources management, but there are some critical issues to irrigation development and management which are important, and that is upstream downstream water distribution to be highlighted here. Upstream development and over abstraction of water supplies can affect on downstream side users negatively. This is happening in our Bhima river basin, where our organization Maharashtra Vikas Kendra is working as an NGO with the grassroots level farmers. Here the key question is, what is the role of irrigation development and management in poverty alleviation? There are strong linkages between irrigation and poverty. These linkages are both in direct and indirect. Direct linkages operates via localized and household level effects, and indirect linkages operates via aggregate and national level impact. Irrigation benefits the poor through higher production, higher yield, low risk of crop failure, and year-round farm as well as non-farm employment. Water availability per capita is declining in India. After independence in 1950, it was 5,200 cubic meter per capita per annum, and now per annum water availability is only 1,400 cubic meter. These are the figures at national level, but in our Bhima river basin where we are working, that per capita water availability 800 cubic meter, and the tributary of Bhima is the Sina river, and in Sina river basin it is less than 800 cubic meter. To tackle the water crisis threatening the future, the interlinking of rivers program is most useful to create additional storage of surplus water flowing during the monsoon and supply to irrigate the fields. In our state Maharashtra, two rivers namely Bhima and Sina were interlinked during the year 1997 to 2002. Due to this interlinking, 62 villages residing on the bank of the Sina river are now getting water, and 23,000 hectares is now under irrigation. These two rivers are linked through 20-kilometer long tunnel. Actually, the total interlinking length is 25 kilometer, 5 kilometer is the open channel, and the surplus water is diverted from Bhima river to Sina river basin. For this water transfer, no electricity is required. Due to this work, people who were migrated to the cities for their bread and butter, most of them come back to their villages and doing farming, and they are getting water to their fields. Reverse migration, I repeat, reverse migration took place due to efficient water resources management. Here I would like to mention that people who were living in rural areas and they don't have water to their field, they migrated towards cities. Since they are non-skilled labor, they have to do 3D work. 3D means danger, difficult and dirty work in the cities. But when these two rivers are linked, people again come back to their own villages. They are doing farming. They are doing farming, and per capita income is increased due to increase in the irrigation potential, and allied agriculture activities are also started within this Sena River basin. Agriculture goods processing units are established, and where landless people are also getting job opportunities. Land and water are key natural resources upon which poor people depend for their livelihoods, and often more heavily than non-poor. Poverty is an outcome of the complex interactions of these and other resources, institutions, actions and policies, and their ultimate outcomes. It is proved in Bhima Sena River Basin that all rural poverty problems could be solved through improving the poor's access to water alone. Bhima and Sena River interlinking is the established example in India, specifically in Maharashtra, in this drought prone area. But I would like to mention one thing, that is, Government of India has established a task force on interlinking of rivers of India in 2002 under the leadership of Honorable Dr. Suresh Prabhu, and this task force has sanctioned 30 river linkages within the India, in which 14 are from Himalayan component and 16 are from peninsular component, and some of the river linking work is under progress, and I am sure after completion of this entire work, the poverty can be eradicated rapidly and the picture of India will be different than today. Thank you.
Muito bem.
Professor, você está sem som.
Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Patil. The next one will be Professor Rogério Oliveira from PUC-Rio, Professor of Geography and Environment Department, and he'll speak about people and forests in Rio de Janeiro. Please, Professor Rogério, the floor is yours.
My greetings for all. My name is Rogério Oliveira. I'm from Pontifical Catholic University of Rio de Janeiro. I work at the Department of Geography and Environment. And I'm going to talk a little bit about forest, water, and people in Rio de Janeiro. We have here a map of the municipality of Rio de Janeiro. And I want to stress you some two main massifs that we have in Rio de Janeiro, Pedra Branca Massif and Tijuca Massif. We have here the famous Copacabana Beach, and here lives the girl from Ipanema, okay? This is, and our university is right here. So I'm going to talk about the occupation of these two massifs that are surrounded by the city that spreads over a huge area. Okay, we are from the massif of Pedra Branca looking towards Tijuca Massif. Let's start with the pre-colonial occupation of the mountains. These little stars, blue stars here, this shows us in a beach on the south zone of Rio de Janeiro. We can see we can find on the middle of the forest some shells and some eggs and some fragments of pottery that belongs to people that live in this area about 3,000 to 4,000 years ago. This was the first human occupation of the mountains on Rio de Janeiro. With the arrival of the European, of the Portuguese, we have three main epochs. First, the sugar and coffee plantation that was from the 17th century to the 19th century. The slash and burn agriculture that was all the time until the present, it's occurring. And we have on the 18th century on the production of charcoal. Let's say a little bit about the production of coffee. The coffee in Brazil is a very important product, and it started in the mountains of Rio de Janeiro. It was a boom of deforesting the slopes of the mountains, main in Tijuca Massif. Okay. Then we have the sugarcane production that was on the basis of the slopes of the mountains. It was very important. The production of sugar was very important to the colonial economy. But it's necessary to stress the use of the forest was very, very important, as they needed the place to plant the sugarcane, but they had a huge necessity of firewood. So there was a pulse of deforesting the forests of the Tijuca and Pedra Branca Massif. And nowadays, we have till today a very traditional form of plantation that people use mules to carry the production. And they plant in a very small, they farm products in a very simple way, and they plant all together, as we can see here, cassava, bananas, yam, etc. And this is a guy collecting, harvesting the bananas, and it's a production, and people live in this mountain till now, but they occupy a very small places, and they near the forest, and they respect the forest, and they are there for many, many time. And they harvest ritual plants to sell in the markets of Rio de Janeiro. But another way of the historical occupation of the mountains of Rio de Janeiro, in the mountains we can see here again the massif of Pedra Branca, is the charcoal production. The charcoal was produced in the mountains. They made a small plateau and used it to a cone of firewood, and they put clay around it, and they used to burn it to transform the firewood into charcoal. And we have we discovered a great amount of charcoal kilns, the place where they made the charcoal, which 1,200 charcoal kilns spread in Pedra Branca Massif. And we suppose that they have produced about 13 tons of charcoal in the 19th century. This was so very intensive use of Pedra Branca slope. And we can see closer here, these charcoal kilns occupy all the massif of Pedra Branca from 0 meters up to about more than 1,000 meters. So it was a very intensive way of using. But, sorry, this use did not produce it when the charcoal production was gone, the forest recovered. So we can see here the charcoal kiln, and after the use, the forest covered everything, and nowadays it's hard to find it. And the people that produced this charcoal, they used it to live in the massif also. And so we can find in the middle of the forest some foundations of their very simple and small houses, we can find it in many, many places, indicating to us that the forest was very used for these people. And this here, this little triangles shows us in the Tijuca and the Pedra Branca massif the places where we found, where we can find this house foundations. So nowadays, what we have, it's the forest covered everything. The forest hides all the signals of previous use of the area. And what we have now, it's people, we have some national parks and state park for preserving nature, but we have also the occupation, two kinds of occupations. Most of the area in a very spread form, for people. So middle class and upper class occupy about 70% of the area of the Tijuca Massif above 100 meters. Okay, so 70% of the area is it's by the upper and middle class houses. But the slums of Rio de Janeiro, the very famous slums of Rio de Janeiro, the population living in the area, 70% live in slums. So the rich people live in a very spread area, and the slums in a very concentrated area. And so these people have many necessities, and water, of course, is very important. And this is Favela da Rocinha. It's a very known slum in Rio de Janeiro. And they don't have, it's hard to have water in all the points, as it's in mountains. And so they use a lot the small streams to get the water and for providing water to them. So the small rivers are very, very important to the slums. And so the protection of the forest is also very important. But there is a problem in cases of heavy rains in areas where the forest was, where occurred fire, where occurred degradation of the forest, is the landslides. And this often, every other summer, it occurs, landslides, sometimes killing people. Here we can see it's very common, very common and very dangerous. And usually they occur in areas like this where the forest is not well conserved, because in the mud go to the lower parts and sometimes kill people, destroy houses, and so on. And it's very important to recognize the root, the importance of the root system for the stability of slopes. So if the forest is conserved, the possibility of landslides is smaller than in areas where the forest is a little bit destroyed. And the destruction of forests in Rio de Janeiro, the main cause is the fires. The regimes of fire in the dry season, the fires occur and destroy a lot of forest, putting people, rich people and poor people in danger. So it was what I had to talk to you. I finished showing this little girl living in a slum in Rio de Janeiro. And thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Professor Rogério. And thank you very much for showing some so beautiful pictures of Rio, you know, our city, our beloved city, so bad treated by, you know, governments and things. But thank you very much, and also showing, you know, the problems of the forest in Rio, the important forest. Now we will have Professor Rafael Soares Gonçalves, Professor of Social Work Department of PUC-Rio, and his presentation will be rain disasters in Rio de Janeiro, favelas, the slums, and the community reforestation project for the city hillsides. So, Professor Rafael, the floor is yours.
My name is Rafael Soares Gonçalves, and it's a great pleasure to share my research about water and risk in Rio's favela. Although my title is in English, I found it simple for me to speak in French, so I ask your permission to continue in French. Voilà, c'est un grand plaisir d'être ici et de pouvoir partager un peu mes recherches sur les favelas, et sur la question de l'eau et de risque, et notamment sur les projets de reboisement communautaire qui datent depuis les années 80. Alors, la première chose que j'aimerais vous partager, c'est expliquer un peu les rôles et l'importance de l'eau dans la ville de Rio. Alors, normalement, on va dire qu'il y a de l'eau, assez de l'eau, ou alors il manque de l'eau. C'est d'ailleurs pour ça que depuis les débuts du XXe siècle, on va surnommer l'eau de précieux liquide, dans le sens qu'il y avait notamment une très forte difficulté de la part du gouvernement de le distribuer au sein de l'agglomération de Rio de Janeiro. Alors, cela, vous pouvez tout à fait imaginer que dans les cas de favelas, c'était encore plus compliqué, parce que depuis jusqu'aux années 70, les favelas, elles étaient considérées complètement illégales. Du fait, la distribution de services, que ce soit de l'eau ou alors de l'électricité, il était interdit de connecter les maisons de manière unitaire, individuelle, dans les réseaux de l'eau. Alors, j'aimerais vous présenter quelques photos et quelques images qui peuvent d'une certaine façon illustrer ce que je suis en train d'expliquer. Alors, dans les cas de l'eau, par exemple, il y a eu quand même de solutions qui ont été établies au sein des favelas pour accéder depuis le début du XXe siècle, d'ailleurs depuis le début de favelas. L'une des premières solutions qui étaient mises en place, c'était la pression politique des habitants à l'égard du gouvernement pour la mise en place des robinets. Et d'ailleurs, ce genre de politique de caractère clientélaire a été surnommé la politique du robinet. La logique, c'était d'installer des robinets aux entrées des favelas, comme vous voyez par exemple dans l'illustration du début du XXe siècle. Et du coup, la population pouvait s'approvisionner de l'eau dans ces robinets éparpillés, que ce soit à l'entrée de la favela ou même à l'intérieur de la favela. Alors, vous voyez bien, moi, j'ai fait plusieurs recherches en utilisant l'histoire orale. Et lorsqu'on discute avec les habitants plus âgés, les mémoires à l'égard de ces robinets, c'était à la fois nostalgique ou alors à la fois un peu triste même, parce que comme je vous ai parlé, c'était déjà difficile l'accès à l'eau à l'échelle de la ville, même dans les quartiers dits formels. En ce qui concerne les favelas, c'était encore plus compliqué. Alors d'ailleurs, plusieurs habitants me disaient que l'eau, il avait plus de force pour arriver dans les robinets pendant la nuit. D'ailleurs, les gens, ils devaient parfois rester toute la nuit pour pouvoir, dans la queue, pour pouvoir remplir leur bidon, bon, bref, leur seau de l'eau pour pouvoir utiliser pour cuisiner, pour se baigner et d'ailleurs pour d'autres choses. Alors là, c'est un aspect intéressant quand même pour expliquer, c'est que l'eau, elle était bien sûr une ressource extrêmement importante en ce qui concerne le mode de vie, la reproduction de la vie de chaque famille, de chaque personne. Mais dans les cas de favela, parfois, elle était aussi importante dans un aspect économique, parce que plusieurs femmes, elles ont travaillé en train de laver des linges pour la classe moyenne ou pour la classe plus âgée. Alors du coup, c'était extrêmement intéressant, c'est que les robinets n'étaient pas seulement un lieu où les gens ils prenaient de l'eau, mais que les gens travaillaient effectivement presque toute la journée. Alors, je peux parler que les robinets dans les favelas, ils étaient un lieu de sociabilité extrêmement important, à la même échelle, par exemple, de l'église ou alors de bars, de bistrots dans les favelas. Alors, je peux vous montrer, par exemple, des images en montrant justement les bidons de l'eau, bref, les laveuses, les femmes qui nettoyaient et qui blanchissaient de vêtements. Cela veut dire que autour du robinet, c'était un lieu où les gens ils devaient aller plusieurs fois par jour pour prendre de l'eau pour leurs besoins, ou alors les gens qui restaient plusieurs heures pendant toute la journée en train de travailler. Alors là, c'est un aspect important parce que, bon, comme je viens de vous expliquer, il avait un manquement, il avait une absence de l'eau à l'échelle de la ville, bien sûr, de manière plus précise dans les favelas. Et les gens, ils ont mis en place plusieurs systèmes, plusieurs solutions. Par exemple, le cas des robinets, mais je peux parler aussi dans un autre projet que j'ai travaillé aux années 2014-2015 notamment. Plusieurs favelas, ils ont mis en place des systèmes assez pointus, assez fines même, en ce qui concerne l'aspect technique, même dans les contextes de la technologie sociale, de capter de l'eau dans le parc national de Tijuca. Alors, vous voyez bien, les sites géographiques de la ville de Rio, c'est une ville magnifique, avec un site géographique vraiment tout à fait spécial. Nous avons des lagunes, des chaînes de montagnes, la mer, la baie, des marécages. Mais bien sûr, cette beauté porte aussi une très forte difficulté pour construire et établir une grosse agglomération de 12-13 millions d'habitants, comme c'est le cas de l'agglomération de Rio de Janeiro. Alors, par exemple, plusieurs favelas autour du parc, ils captent de l'eau. Alors, on peut voir que dans le parc, il y a plusieurs tuyaux, d'une certaine façon, avec des réseaux assez pointus. J'ai travaillé dans la favela de Formiga, c'est une favela située dans la zone nord de Rio, dans le quartier de Tijuca. C'est une favela qu'il y a à peu près une trentaine société de l'eau, comme c'est nommé par les habitants, mais en fait, ce n'est pas vraiment une société dans un aspect marchand, c'est plutôt une association, que les gens, ils cotisent un peu de ressources pour la maintenance du système, et toute la maintenance est faite avec l'entraide de manière collective. J'ai travaillé la société nommée Bellevue, et alors c'est vraiment intéressant parce qu'elle est composée par 15 familles qui existent depuis les années 40. Et là, c'est très intéressant, c'est de bien saisir que par ces lots-là, c'est vraiment un système, un réseau socio-technique, si on peut parler, parce que par ces tuyaux, bien sûr, qu'ils passent de l'eau, mais ils passent aussi la mémoire, ils passent aussi des relations sociales. Par exemple, même la temporalité de l'organisation sociale, parce que par exemple, tous les mois d'octobre, il y a le nettoyage du réservoir de l'eau. Alors, il y a presque une fête où les gens passent toute une matinée en train de nettoyer. Bref, au mois de décembre, il y a une grosse fête avec tout l'argent qui a été collecté pendant l'année. Alors, pour vous expliquer qu'il y a une structure, une organisation sociale qui va au-delà du service de l'eau en tant que tel et qui joue un rôle vraiment extrêmement important dans l'organisation de réseaux, des rapports sociaux et qui joue un aspect vraiment intéressant. Par exemple, l'un des habitants, à un moment donné, il m'expliquait qu'il était vraiment très angoissé parce que leurs enfants, ils ne connaissaient pas les systèmes et qu'il avait une très forte difficulté de passer l'organisation de ces systèmes pour la nouvelle génération. Il disait, écoutez, j'ai l'impression que mon fils, il pense que l'eau, il sort du robinet de manière miraculeuse. Alors, c'est vraiment très intéressant parce que ces systèmes collectifs, il y a une vraie logique, une vraie compréhension depuis la source d'eau à l'intérieur du parc jusqu'au robinet, en comprenant la totalité et l'importance de faire face et de bien traiter et de bien maintenir ce système-là et cette ressource qui c'est une ressource rare quand même. Bref, pour vous expliquer, la première chose alors, c'est les rapports avec l'eau. Un aspect, c'est très clair, très bien expliqué, comme j'ai voulu vous expliquer, la question de l'absence. Mais Rio, c'est quand même situé dans une zone tropicale, c'est une ville extrêmement humide, il ne manque pas de l'eau. En fait, le problème, c'est distribuer de l'eau de manière juste et pour tous les citoyens. Alors, un deuxième aspect de l'eau intéressant, c'est justement le trop de l'eau. Alors, c'est en ce qui concerne, par exemple, notamment dans la période de grosses pluies à Rio, qui va plus ou moins du mois de février jusqu'au mois d'avril, où il y a énormément des inondations. Il y a aussi des écroulements de terre. Bon, bref, je vous montre aussi quelques photos dans ces contextes-là. Alors, pour vous dire que même dans la mémoire de la ville, dans la mémoire collective des habitants de la ville, il y a même des grosses dates, des dates extrêmement importantes concernant ces tempêtes-là. Alors, par exemple, je peux vous parler, dans un projet, on a essayé de travailler les mémoires de ces grosses tempêtes. Il y a la tempête de 66-67 qui a joué un rôle important, même en poussant la mairie d'instituer un organisme municipal, la PUC-Rio, qui joue un rôle technique extrêmement important pour éviter notamment l'écoulement des questions géologiques dans les favelas de Rio. Je peux vous parler aussi, par exemple, des pluies de 88. C'était aussi une pluie extrêmement importante. Et c'est vraiment très intéressant parce que au début des années 80, il démarrait tous les projets de réhabilitation des favelas. Alors, en 88, c'est qu'on se rendait compte que les favelas qui ont été réhabilitées, l'impact de grosses tempêtes était largement inférieur de favelas qui n'ont pas été encore objet de l'intervention de l'État. Et après, j'ai travaillé en 2010, c'est une autre grosse tempête, pendant la période de l'organisation des grands événements sportifs à Rio. Et alors là, il a joué un rôle complètement différent parce qu'on a justifié la mise en place du retour, de relogement, d'éradication des favelas dans la ville par la question du risque et par l'écoulement de terrain. Bref, pour vous expliquer. Et alors, dans ce contexte-là, j'aimerais, dans les minutes qui me restent de présentation, vous parler d'un projet plus spécifique qui, à mon avis, c'est un projet extrêmement intéressant. C'est le projet de reboisement communautaire, reflorestamento comunitário. C'est un projet qui existe depuis les années 80, extrêmement intéressant. Et d'ailleurs, l'un des aspects tout à fait intéressants pour expliquer au début, c'est la longue durée du projet. La plupart du temps, ces projets d'intervention, ils durent le temps d'un mandat de tel maire, de tel gouverneur ou alors d'un tel président. Mais là, c'est un projet qui dure très longtemps, bref, presque une quarantaine d'années, et qu'il y a des aspects vraiment très intéressants. Alors, bon, 3 questions et j'aimerais vous parler de ce projet. La première, c'est l'aspect urbanistique. Alors, le projet, il démarre en 86. Il y a un aspect plutôt urbanistique au début. Il s'agissait d'occuper les collines de la ville par la couverture verte en train de planter. Bon, il n'y avait pas vraiment une réflexion au début de la biodiversité, des espèces. Bon, bref, ça, c'était pas tout à fait réfléchi au début. La logique, c'était, il y a les dangers d'écroulement, il y a des tempêtes, il faut réoccuper certaines collines de la ville justement pour qu'il n'ait pas une nouvelle occupation par de nouvelles maisons dans ces espaces-là et qu'on puisse protéger les autres habitants qui habitent dans des zones plus basses de la favela. Alors, l'aspect urbanistique. Alors, au début, c'était ça, notamment. Un deuxième aspect important, c'est l'aspect social du projet. Et dans ce contexte-là, j'aimerais parler de 2 aspects. Le premier aspect, c'est que le projet, comme le nom dit, c'est reboisement communautaire. Il était fait par l'entraide. On a employé des familles, des habitants de la favela elle-même. Alors, depuis les années 80, il y a plusieurs familles, des centaines, de milliers de familles qui sont nourries, qui ont été employées dans ces projets-là, en jouant un rôle important pour ces familles dans les domaines économiques. Bon, bref, c'est un accès à un emploi. Alors, ça, c'est un aspect tout à fait intéressant. Mais il y a un deuxième aspect que j'aimerais souligner notamment, c'est que ces projets-là, ils jouent un rôle important parce qu'il a été constitué par les habitants eux-mêmes. Alors, cela veut dire que le reboisement n'était pas fait par une compagnie, une entreprise, il n'était pas fait par la mairie. Bon, bref, il y avait la médiation de la mairie, bien sûr, c'était un projet de la mairie, mais ce n'était pas quelqu'un de l'extérieur qui a planté tel arbre ou tel, bon, bref, qui a reboisé une telle zone. Non, c'était pour les habitants, c'était mon voisin, c'était mon père, c'était moi-même, c'était mon collègue, bref. C'est très intéressant que dans la plupart des favelas où il y a eu le reboisement communautaire, il y a une appropriation collective. Cela veut dire que c'était une œuvre, c'était quelque chose vraiment collectif, des habitants eux-mêmes. Et cela donne tout le sens, de manière vraiment contraire d'une intervention qui vient d'en haut, tout à fait imposée sur les habitants. Alors du coup, c'est vraiment important parce que la plupart des zones où il y a eu le reboisement communautaire, il n'a pas eu une réoccupation de ces zones-là. Parce que les gens, ils ont compris, non, cela c'était fait pour nous-mêmes. Il y a une logique vraiment importante pour nous protéger. Alors du coup, la plupart des zones qui ont été reboisées, sont toujours reboisés jusqu'à nos jours. Alors ça, c'est un aspect important. Et à mon avis, dans tous les projets de réhabilitation, d'intervention dans ces zones-là, il faut qu'il fait sens. Il faut que les interventions soient collectivement appropriées par tous. Il y a un troisième aspect qui me semble vraiment important, c'est l'aspect plutôt environnemental. Et alors là, j'ai l'impression que c'est les derniers aspects qui a joué un rôle plus important depuis quelques années, c'est que peu à peu, le projet il a commencé à réfléchir qu'il fallait quand même penser dans les domaines de la biodiversité, il fallait réfléchir dans la mise en place des espèces natives, des espèces de la Mata Atlantica. Bref, il y a eu toute une réflexion plus fine dans les domaines environnementaux qui a joué un rôle vraiment très intéressant dans ces moments-là. Par exemple, dans plusieurs réunions que moi j'ai été, j'ai entendu la mise en place des animaux, des abeilles, bref, pour vraiment réfléchir dans la biodiversité dans plusieurs domaines de manière plus complexe. Alors là, j'aimerais vous montrer quelques photos pour vous expliquer que malgré les discours que normalement on entend à Rio de Janeiro en disant que les favelas sont en train de détruire le parc national, la forêt, ce qu'on voit depuis les années 80, c'est au contraire. C'est que la plupart des collines de la ville ont été réoccupées, notamment par les arbres, en montrant très clairement que l'équation que les pauvres détruisent la nature, et bref, c'est pas tout à fait vrai, et qu'il y a aussi la possibilité d'une appropriation extrêmement intéressante de la part de cette population aussi, d'une conscience de l'importance de la préservation. Alors, pour vous montrer, bon, des années 80 et jusqu'à nos jours, vraiment, vous pouvez voir par les photos la différence. Par exemple, bon, j'ai mis quelques photos pour illustrer un peu ce que j'ai voulu vous expliquer. Voilà, je vous remercie et c'était vraiment un grand plaisir d'être ici. J'espère que ces projets ils puissent aussi porter des fruits dans d'autres villes autour du monde et qu'on puisse saisir l'importance de l'eau et notamment l'importance de faire face aux questions de déficit social, bref, des inégalités sociales. Et je suis sûr qu'on peut tout à fait réfléchir des interventions qui puissent intégrer pleinement les favelas et leurs habitants en ayant la conscience qu'ils font partie pleine de la ville. Merci.
Merci, Raphaël. C'était très bon de voir une autre fois les très beaux photos de Rio, mais la confrontation avec les graves problèmes sociaux, ça c'est l'importance de votre présentation. Merci beaucoup. Now we have Professor Sebastian Michael, Professor of Cultural Anthropology, Director of the Institute of Indian Culture, Postgraduate Research Center in Society, Culture and Religion from Mumbai, India. And he will speak on the ecology, water, culture difference, a case study of differing cultural adjustments in economic development. Professor Sebastian Michael, the floor is yours.
Respected ladies and gentlemen, I will be reflecting about the relationship between ecology, culture, and development. The reasons for variations in culture and civilization in different parts of the world have been a focus of study among scholars for a very long time. Today, more than ever, the different cultures and civilizations influence each other, and a process of change is taking place among these cultures. The variations in the pattern of change and the way these cultures adapt themselves to the process of change is an important area of investigation for the understanding of humanity. This paper studies about the relationship between ecology and the pattern of culture change in India. It is divided into 4 parts. The first part studies the available theories on the relationship between ecology and culture. The second part takes up a case study of two ecological regions in India to investigate the relationship of ecology to culture. The third part studies the pattern of culture change related to their respective ecologies. The fourth part is the conclusion. Let us begin with the theoretical perspectives on the relationship between ecology and culture. Hippocrates, who lived 460 to 357 BC, suggested that physical qualities of a region are primarily, if not exclusively, responsible for a people's culture and achievements. The environment is believed to be a determining factor in the life of human beings, especially with reference to their economic activities and the satisfaction of their biological needs. Since that time, many social scientists have been studying the relationship between ecology and cultural achievements of people. Taking liberty and not simplifying, we may summarize their theories in the following manner. We may summarize A. Geography as a determining factor. The Greeks are considered to be the first to make a systematic study of geography. Aristotle, and prior to him Herodotus, traced to climatic and geographical factors what they held to be the superior physical and intellectual ability of the Greeks. In a comprehensive manner, Strabo tried to interpret the history of Rome in terms of favorable geographical factors like its situation on a hill at the mouth of a river, its fine climate, and its fertile soil. This view of the primacy of geographical and climatic factors led to the emergence of the geographical determinism. This approach is based on the mechanical action of natural forces upon a purely receptive humanity. Ratzel published a book on the subject called History of Mankind in 1896, in which he posited a direct causal relationship between features of the natural environment and works of human beings. B. Critique of geographical determinism. A number of leading scholars and sociologists have reacted against the approach of geographical determinism. Eminent anthropologists such as Boas, Weisler, Goldenweiser, Kroeber, and Ford showed that at best the geographical factor is but one among several factors which enter into making the life not only of the individual but of a human group or community. Now C. Reciprocity between ecology and culture. In emphasizing one or the other cultural aspects to account for variations in achievements of people, several social scientists came dangerously close to throwing out any consideration of even possible relationship between culture and habitat. There is an increasing realization that all human communities are to a greater or lesser degree subject to the vagaries of their environment. Humans as yet can do little to prevent or arrest natural phenomena such as earthquakes, climatic changes, and floods. People in your cultures, therefore, try to understand and adapt themselves to the limits imposed by them on their environment. In recent years, there is an increasing interest in the relationship between culture and ecology. They stress the reciprocity between ecology and culture. With the above theoretical background, this study scrutinizes the influence of ecology and the cultural patterns of Tamil Nadu and Kerala, the two ecologically different regions in South India. So now let us say ecology and culture and Tamil Nadu. Kerala is situated in a mountainous terrain on the western tip of peninsular South India. Kerala is situated between the Arabian Sea to the west and the Western Ghats to the east. Since Kerala lies so far to the south of India and on the west coast, the rain-bearing monsoon winds from the Arabian Sea arrives early and continue late. This enables the state to get rainfall both from the southwest and the northeast monsoons. Kerala receives an average annual rainfall of 3,055 millimeters. In addition, Kerala is a land of rivers and backwaters. The rich soil, heavy rainfall, the damp climate of Kerala have produced dense forests, mostly deciduous in the lowlands and foothills, and evergreen on the high mountains. Tamil Nadu, on the other hand, is situated on the eastern side of the southern tip of the Indian peninsula. Tamil Nadu receives normal annual rainfall of about 998 millimeter, while the rain-bearing currents of southwest monsoon, which blows from the Indian Ocean, gives as much as of 3,555 millimeter of rain on the west coast of Kerala. Most parts of Tamil Nadu become a rain shadow due to the fact that the rain clouds are unable to pass over to the Western Ghats. Since the state is entirely dependent on rain for recharging its water resources, monsoon failures lead to acute water scarcity and severe droughts. Now, let us concentrate on the influence of ecology on the cultures of Kerala and Tamil Nadu. From very early times, the west coast of South India has been well known for its special crops such as pepper and spices. Kerala is known for its commercial crops more than its food crops. Due to this peculiar cropping pattern, the economic life in Kerala is strongly influenced by horticulture. Very often, they are commercial crops. The important crops of Kerala are coconut, aracanut, pepper, cardamom, cocoa, coffee, tea, ginger, tapioca, rubber, and cashew nuts. Kerala is also the largest producer of other crops like bananas, pineapples, and jackfruits. Though wet rice cultivation is also an important crop in Kerala, the horticultural produce distinguishes this state from many other states in India. Based on soil characteristics, rainfall distribution, irrigation pattern, cropping pattern, and other ecological and social characteristics, the state of Tamil Nadu cultivates various agricultural crops. The traditional economy of the state is based primarily on agriculture. Around 70% of the state's population is involved in agricultural activities, as this is one of the major means of livelihood in Tamil Nadu. Now let us make a comparative study of the pattern of culture in Tamil Nadu and Kerala. The type of land utilization and crop production in Tamil Nadu and Kerala affect the mobility pattern and economic conditions of the people of the two states. In the given ecological conditions of Tamil Nadu, paddy cultivation becomes the dominant form of agricultural activity. Cultivation of paddy crop necessitates certain kinds of interdependent labor relations. Since rice is sensitive to water level, soil conditions, weeds, and attacks of pests, it requires much care and a restricted flexibility in its cultivation processes. It also severely restricts flexibility of the work cycle of the people concerned with cultivation. This type of land utilization and crop production in Tamil Nadu has led to a certain kind of social structure in the state. The construction of large-scale water resources such as tanks, lakes, and canals presupposes an organization of groups of men and women through the help of at least a partially centralized government leading to a strong charismatic authority. Moreover, rice cultivation also requires a lot of group activities for transplantation, irrigation, and harvesting. As a result, there came to be a well-stratified agrarian social structure according to caste, with a high concentration of low-paid field laborers who form the lowest strata of society. Since they are paid very little for the labor, they are not in position to send their children to school. Poverty in the family forces the parents to send their children out to work rather than to school. It also happens that when the parents are in the field, the older children are asked to take care of the young babies. The net result of all this is a great disparity between the high caste and the low caste, and a high level of illiteracy among the scheduled castes and the other poor people. Thus, the occupational cycle of the agricultural economy with its labor predisposes the Tamil people to be rather traditional in their outlook. Kerala, on the other hand, is known more for its commercial crops than its food crops. Due to its ecological advantages, the economic life in Kerala is strongly influenced by horticulture of such items like coconut, arecanut, rubber, pepper, coffee, cardamom, cashew nuts, tapioca, as I told you earlier. Different crop production involves different social relationships. While paddy cultivation requires group work and constant care in the form of ploughing, preparing soil, sowing, transplanting, harvesting, threshing, winnowing, and transporting cash crops like coconut, cocoa, rubber, pepper, etc. need less care and relatively less human power. Accordingly, the division of labor in agriculture and horticulture differs. Rice is a sensitive crop, limiting flexibility in its cultivation process. Cash crops, on the other hand, are normally hardy, require much less labor, and provide more flexibility in the work cycle than rice. The resulting variation in the organization of work of different crops have influenced the social structure of Kerala. Due to the fact that cash crops need less manual labor, the agricultural laborers in Kerala are also less in number. Moreover, Kerala has been in the forefront of land reforms, with the result that landlordism has almost disappeared. Consequently, even the low caste and poor people possess at least some land which is fertile and which can yield cash crops. This has enabled even the poor and the low caste to be educated. The mixed food habits and the cleaner environment has given them better health. As a consequence of the above factors, the Keralites have tended to be more achievement-oriented and mobile. In addition, the enormous demographic pressure in Kerala, say 747 persons to 1 square kilometer, engenders hard work among the Malayalis. The state of Kerala has attained a high level of human development and life standards. In another way, we can say different approaches to social change by the people of Tamil Nadu and Kerala. The study indicates that the mode of socio-cultural processes in Tamil Nadu and Kerala is different. While the Tamils live close together in a huddled pattern, the Keralites, on the other hand, live in a scattered and dispersed manner. The social life of the Tamils is very intensive, village-oriented, and emotional. The social life of the Keralites, on the other hand, is more family-oriented. The Tamils tend to be more social and collective. Keralites, on the other hand, tend to be more independent and individualistic. Keralites show a keen interest in economic achievement. The Tamils are more interested in the preservation and promotion of the traditional culture as reflected in the symbols of art, music, language, and religion. This is not to suggest that the people from Kerala are not interested in the welfare of their kinsmen or in the promotion of their cultural traditions. The Keralites help one another much more than Tamils with regard to finding jobs and other mutual help. The Tamils, on the other hand, in spite of their emotional attachment to caste and traditional culture, quite often exhibit petty jealousy. It is because the Tamil relationship is interdependent, and so there is much expectation from each other for mutual help. Our above observations on the cultural life of the Tamil and Kerala people in their respective ecologies are corroborated with the other research studies. The study of Susan Lewandowski on migration and ethnicity in urban India, Kerala migrants in the city of Madras between 1870 to 1970 compares the modernization trends of the Tamils and Keralites. She observes, although the Tamilians turned to the traditional history and myths in order to assert their political status in 20th century South India, the Malayalis have chosen a different route by identifying not with the regional cultural symbols, but with a modern secular lifestyle. She also observes that the distinguishing characteristics of the Kerala migrants is the desire on the part of the many of these migrants to become entrepreneurs in their own right. Many who entered the city penniless in the 1940s now own their own small shops, stalls, although they may not earn more than 400 rupees a month. The study was done a long ago. They are economically independent. Other studies, that of Maithili, also point to the Tamils' attachment to the traditional culture in Bombay. She says the desire to come together and to promote their own traditional culture is seen best in their numerous associational activities. There are several other studies on the diaspora communities of Tamils in different parts of the world also indicate similar observation as pointed out above. The research of the present author, Culture and Urbanization, published in 1989, on the Tamil and Kerala migrants in Bombay, showed that Malayalis enjoy a better economic status than the Tamils. The study of the present speaker, S.M. Michael, on the economic conditions of the Tamils and Keralites of Bombay suggest that there is a significant correlation between economic position on the one hand and physical, social, and psychological mobility on the other. The Keralites are more mobile in changing their dwelling than the Tamils. Change in occupation is another index of mobility than the Tamils. In other aspects of mobility, such as a family size, education, overseas migration, the Keralites manifest higher mobility in comparison with the Tamils. Now we turn back our theoretical and practical implications of this study. In the theoretical aspect of this study, we discussed the relationship between culture and ecology. We pointed out that scholars differ in regard to the nature of the relationship between the two variables. There is no denying the fact that the natural and the ecological factors have a significant bearing on cultural processes. However, their influence differs from one society to another. Hence, it is necessary to examine the nature and extent of this influence in a given context. A quick survey of Indian history will show that deficient rainfall led to the collapse of the Mansabdi system started by the Mughal Emperor Akbar. In the late 17th century, similarly, drought interspersed with the violent monsoon rains sounded the death knell for the Khmer Empire of Southeast Asia in the 15th century. A recent study by researchers at Indian Institute of Technology, Kharagpur, has revealed that abrupt changes in the Indian monsoon in the last 900 years decided the course of human history in the subcontinent. Our investigation of the ecological conditions in Kerala and Tamil Nadu brings out the cultures and social structures of the two regions. Though these cultures are at the southern tip of Indian peninsula, but their ecologies are very different. In the development of these regions, they had a common culture, language, and religion interrelated to Tamil. The origin of the Tamil region and its early history are buried in obscurity. While there was free flow of rain and river waters in Tamil region, the ecology was very different from today. The Tamil region was very prosperous and politically very influential. But during the course of political and historical changes, the water flow has been diverted and Tamil region slowly and gradually began to experience lack of water resources, and this began to affect the ecology and culture of Tamil people. By this, what we mean, and what I want to say is that there are other studies that confirm that ecological factors play an important role in the cultural regions of the world, including India. The study of Anil K. Gupta shows there can be no doubting the profound impact of the abrupt shift of rainfall on human history, a fact we need to constantly remind ourselves in this day and age of climate change. Abrupt shift in the Indian summer monsoon precipitation has similarly impacted history in India. I humbly submit that the present study has a certain pragmatic value as well as particularly with reference to the question of ethnicity and psychological and cultural variables in social change. We suggest that there is a need on the part of the educators, social workers, government officials, and others involved in community development programs to understand the pull and push factors linked to ecology and culture in patterns of socio-cultural change in India. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Michael. We are now going to the second part, the surveys of inequalities. And the first speaker is Ms. Viviane Matipa, attorney at law and former Minister of Justice and Human Rights in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Ms. Matipa, the floor is yours.
Mesdames et messieurs, l'énoncé de mon intervention de ce jour est « Essai sur une tentative de réduction de la pauvreté, RDC Casus, des solutions surannées à la réalité ». La République démocratique du Congo a le privilège d'être un pays extrêmement riche en ressources naturelles. Elle est dotée d'immenses ressources minières, des terres arables fertiles, d'un potentiel hydrique et d'un capital humain énorme. Pays aux nombreux superlatifs en matière de potentiel, sa population vit pourtant dans une extrême pauvreté, en parfaite inadéquation avec son potentiel. La Banque mondiale a fixé le seuil de pauvreté absolue à $1 par jour et la République démocratique du Congo répond parfaitement à ce critère. Dans le but de proposer une solution au problème de réduction de la pauvreté, des définitions de ce qu'est la pauvreté, sa cause intrinsèque et des index d'évaluation de celle-ci sont élaborés et aboutissent à des plans nationaux stratégiques de développement dans différents pays. Le plan national stratégique de développement de la RDC, qui constitue le cadre fédérateur de toutes les politiques et stratégies nationales, sectorielles et provinciales, est axé sur les objectifs de développement durable, les ODD. Ces programmes, qui s'inspirent énormément des recommandations des institutions de Bretton Woods, pêchent par l'incapacité de mobiliser les finances nécessaires à leur mise en œuvre. Il faut en outre s'interroger sur l'adéquation des propositions de réduction de la pauvreté aux besoins réels des pays. D'aucuns s'interrogent si les prémices de l'analyse ne sont pas faussées par le souci d'uniformiser des théories dans le but d'élaborer des solutions uniformes applicables dans tout pays en voie de développement et calquées par ceux-ci sans analyse profonde des réalités de chaque pays. Le manque de prise en compte des spécificités de chaque pays sur le plan social, économique, culturel, ne justifie-t-il pas le peu de succès des politiques de développement par les États et les institutions de Bretton Woods? Les facteurs qui déterminent la richesse d'un pays sont connus et comprennent, sans être exhaustifs, des terres agricoles avec le climat approprié, les richesses du sous-sol, la démographie, le niveau d'éducation de la population, la santé, le niveau de technologie et d'industrialisation du pays. Si tous ces facteurs sont importants dans la réduction de la pauvreté, 3 d'entre eux me semblent incontournables pour le développement de la République démocratique du Congo. L'agriculture avec un accent particulier sur l'agro-industrie, le secteur manufacturier et industriel et le secteur énergétique. La République démocratique du Congo possède 80 millions de terres arables. Cependant, même pas 10% de ces terres ne sont cultivées. L'activité agricole s'est dégradée au fil des années suite à la dégradation des infrastructures couplée à l'insécurité qui sévit dans plusieurs de nos provinces. Par conséquent, les milieux ruraux se vident de leur population suite à l'exode rural, et ce, à la recherche du mieux vivre. L'agriculture, socle de toute économie en développement, fait cruellement défaut, et le déficit alimentaire contribue au déséquilibre de la balance de paiement. La République démocratique du Congo est un grand importateur de biens de première nécessité, et ce compris la nourriture. Le soutien des institutions d'aide au développement est extrêmement limité dans ce secteur, même si l'on a observé une amélioration ces dernières années. L'agriculture est pourtant un instrument puissant pour entraîner la croissance, enrayer la pauvreté et renforcer la sécurité alimentaire. Mon plaidoyer est donc que les bailleurs de fonds et nos pouvoirs publics donnent priorité dans leur budget aux investissements, source de croissance de ce secteur et capables d'assurer la sécurité alimentaire par le biais d'une augmentation des revenus, et ce au détriment de la fourniture de produits alimentaires, de l'aide alimentaire. L'agriculture peut faire reculer la pauvreté, car la République démocratique du Congo possède les terres, le capital humain, même si l'accès à l'eau reste paradoxalement un problème dans un pays qui possède un réseau hydrographique couvrant 77 810 km², soit 52% de la surface totale de réserve d'eau du continent africain, et son imposant fleuve Congo, dont le débit de 40 000 mètres cubes par jour le place premier sur le plan africain et deuxième sur le plan mondial après l'Amazonie. Ventre affamé n'a point d'oreille, dit-on. Ne serait-il pas avant-gardiste de mettre l'accent d'abord sur ce secteur et ensuite suivront l'éducation et l'acquisition des connaissances technologiques pour le développement du secteur manufacturier et industriel. À cause de l'exode, nos populations rurales se déversent dans les villes où il n'y a que les chômages qui les attendent, par manque d'industrie créateur d'emplois. Cependant, cette industrialisation ne peut se concevoir sans l'accès à l'énergie. Même l'agro-industrie en est tributaire. L'accès à l'énergie pour les ménages et les entreprises constitue un défi majeur en République démocratique du Congo. Seulement 15,4% de la population a accès à l'énergie électrique et 40% des ménages. Un autre paradoxe pour un pays qui a un potentiel énergétique de 100 000 mégawatts, dont le projet Inga à lui seul a une puissance potentielle de 44 000 mégawatts. Ce potentiel représente 37% du potentiel africain et 6% du potentiel mondial. Et pourtant, que des années perdues en des discussions stériles sur le développement du projet Inga. Inga, outil pourtant indispensable au développement non seulement de la RDC mais des autres pays, et dont le déficit impacte négativement toutes les activités économiques, et même ce secteur minier dont la production ne profite que très peu aux populations locales, mais attire l'attention et la convoitise de tous. Mesdames et messieurs, la volonté réelle de réduction de la pauvreté ne se trouve certainement pas dans les solutions d'échelonnement de la dette, ni dans ces politiques d'ajustement structurel dont l'Afrique a été le meilleur laboratoire. Elle se trouve plutôt dans l'investissement dans le capital humain, dans sa capacité productive et dans le développement d'une industrie de transformation. Je vous remercie pour votre aimable attention.
Merci, Madame Vivine Matipa. And now we have Professor Maria Sara Teles from the Professor of Sociology, Social Science Department at PUC-Rio. And la Professeur Maria Sara Teles a parlé aussi en français, une analyse de la lutte contre les inégalités au Brésil, progrès et défis. Sarah, la table est à vous.
Bonjour à tous et à toutes. Je voudrais remercier l'invitation pour participer de cette International Conference Leaving No One Behind, Water and Inequalities, tout particulièrement au professeur Luiz Roberto Cunha, qui dirige le Centre de Sciences sociales de notre université. Pour commencer cette présentation, je voudrais montrer des données sur la richesse et certaines inégalités au Brésil qui quantifient en quelque sorte l'ampleur de ces inégalités. Alors, je vous montre. Alors, la population du Brésil, de 114 millions d'habitants, dont 44,2% de blancs, sur des autodéclarés blancs, 54% noirs et 1,1% indigènes. Le Brésil a le PIB le plus important au monde, une donnée de 2020. Les 1,1% plus riches touchent environ 30% de la richesse nationale. Les 1% plus riches représentent 40% de la richesse. Données de 2018 d'Oxfam. Les 10% plus riches, 74% de la richesse, les 50% plus pauvres, 3% de la richesse. Dans les 10% aux revenus les plus élevés, 70,6% sont blancs. Et dans les 10% aux revenus les plus bas, 77% sont noirs. Encore des données pour voir l'ampleur des inégalités. Les 1% les plus riches du pays ont aujourd'hui 28,3% de tous les revenus. Le Brésil a la deuxième concentration la plus élevée de revenus au monde, selon un rapport de l'ONU. Le Qatar occupe la première place. La valeur du SMIC, du salaire minimum, environ $200. En 2019, le nombre de millionnaires au Brésil a atteint 259 000, ce qui représente une augmentation de 19,35% par rapport à l'année précédente. Alors, je continue. Et la société brésilienne, depuis la fin du XXe siècle, mais surtout au XXIe, a passé par une reformulation de la question sociale. Les problèmes principaux jusqu'au début de la pandémie du COVID-19 n'étaient plus la faim ou son combat. Les défis étaient des produits, la mobilité sociale pour ceux qui sont en état de vulnérabilité et de pauvreté, environ 65% de la population, dont la survie dépendait des politiques d'assistance sociale. Les données de 2013 indiquaient que le pays avait 10 millions de Brésiliens qui vivaient dans la pauvreté extrême, environ 5% de la population. Environ 35 millions sont sortis de cette situation pendant ces années 2003 jusqu'à 2014, surtout avec une politique d'augmentation de la valeur réelle du salaire minimum. Ça veut dire au-dessus des taux de l'inflation. Le programme d'aide familiale, le programme bourse familiale, a été responsable pour une partie moins importante de cette réduction du point de vue statistique. En parallèle, avec la diminution de la pauvreté absolue, on annonçait la mise en place d'une nouvelle classe moyenne, une promesse qui a été rompue par la suite et qui constitue aujourd'hui l'un des principaux défis. Mais les inégalités sociales sont encore énormes et aujourd'hui, selon les données du ministère de la Citoyenneté, du gouvernement, presque 40 millions de personnes vivent dans l'extrême pauvreté au Brésil, le nombre dépassant l'ensemble de la population du Canada, qui est de 38 millions d'habitants. Aussi, en 5 ans, le nombre de personnes au Brésil en situation d'insécurité alimentaire sévère, ça veut dire la faim, a augmenté d'environ 3 millions, atteignant au moins environ 10,3 millions de Brésiliens dans cette situation. Seules les personnes vivant dans des domiciles permanents sont incluses dans cette compte. c'est-à-dire que les sans-abri sont exclus de l'enquête, ce qui augmente encore la traînée de la faim à travers les pays. Nous sommes en train d'assister au retour de l'augmentation de l'extrême pauvreté et de la faim. Je vais essayer de résumer ce qui s'est passé au cours de la deuxième décennie de ce siècle et les défis d'aujourd'hui. Entre 2003 et 2014, avec de gouvernements progressistes, le Brésil a connu la plus forte réduction historique de la pauvreté absolue depuis 1976. Et cela s'est produit avec une réduction des inégalités de revenus. Un processus unique dans notre histoire républicaine, appelé la décennie dorée. Les analystes y ont identifié l'espoir de la social-démocratisation de l'État brésilien. Si, en 2002, avant cette décennie, le Brésil était le champion du monde des inégalités, en 2014, à la fin de cette décennie, il est passé à la 13e place, selon les PNUD. Ça, c'était la décennie que je veux dire, de 2003-2014. Aujourd'hui, nous avons les résultats des 5 années, les 5 dernières années, de démantèlement de nombreux acquis sociaux en raison surtout des réformes du travail et de la sécurité sociale qui ont interrompu l'expérience de redistribution de revenus menée jusqu'en 2014 et qui, avec l'arrivée de la pandémie, ont aggravé la situation sociale qui se détériorait déjà. À partir de la fin du XXe siècle, nous avons assisté à un changement progressif dans le contexte des institutions sociales qui affecte l'ensemble de la société brésilienne, surtout après 1990, mais surtout l'univers populaire urbain que je résumerai dans les points suivants. La crise du monde du travail, avec l'ouverture du marché par la mondialisation, intensifiant les rapports compétitifs. La forte augmentation de la consommation et l'endettement des ménages. Des changements dans l'institution familiale. Des changements dans les réseaux de solidarité populaire, en particulier dans les favelas, comme dans la ville de Rio, avec une forte augmentation de la violence. Enfin, il s'agit d'un nouveau cadre sociétal qui pointe vers un nouveau diagnostic de l'hétérogénéité de la pauvreté et des possibilités de mobilité sociale. Les racismes contre la population noire et indigène persistent au niveau structurel, institutionnel et dans la subjectivité des personnes dans un pays dans lequel la majorité de la population ne se déclare pas blanche. De nombreux facteurs composent ces cycles d'accumulation de désavantages, comme les racismes structurels qui empêchent la réduction des inégalités de classe en aggravant les distances sociales et contribuant à un taux croissant d'insatisfaction. D'autre part, la conscience raciale des nouvelles générations et leur exigence d'intégration sociale par l'éducation, par le travail et par les revenus salariaux, s'accroissent. Les demandes des politiques antiracistes et d'actions positives indiquent un scénario de plus grande inclusion. Par l'accès à la consommation et aux valeurs de la classe moyenne, en général, les nouvelles générations de jeunes de la périphérie émergent comme les principaux acteurs qui indiquent l'urgence des transformations structurelles. Une partie de ces jeunes noirs sont aussi la principale cible de violences policières, notamment dans les grandes villes comme à Rio de Janeiro. Ces rapprochements de valeurs entre les classes moyennes et supérieures d'un côté et les nouvelles générations de jeunes de la périphérie indiquent un changement important qui tend à empointer de nouvelles. Il faut comprendre que la tradition hiérarchique de la distance entre les classes a accompagné l'histoire de la société brésilienne, résistant même après l'abolition de l'esclavage à la fin du XIXe siècle. En conclusion, Malgré les progrès réalisés dans la réduction de la pauvreté absolue pendant la décennie dorée, de nombreuses études dans les lieux d'habitation des pauvres en milieu urbain, les favelas, les banlieues, les quartiers populaires, nécessitent d'observer la présence des trajectoires de vulnérabilité, des privations multiples dans lesquelles des millions de familles sont confrontées à toutes sortes de difficultés pour tenter de s'assurer une vie plus digne. Il reste encore un long chemin à parcourir parce que les obstacles à la mobilité sociale des plus démunis sont extrêmement solides. Dès la fin du XXe siècle, je conclus, on peut identifier un durcissement de la structure sociale dans son ensemble, avec l'augmentation des inégalités, inclus dans les pays du Nord, les pays riches. Mais sauf pour les très pauvres, dans les cas brésiliens, et sauf pendant cette décennie dorée. Le défi de la réduction de l'énorme fracture sociale s'impose. Notre inégalité de revenus reste encore l'une des plus importantes au monde. Par conséquent, en ce qui concerne la question sociale, le Brésil présente des indicateurs, on dirait, d'un pays pauvre, même si le pays a le 12e plus grand PIB, produit intérieur brut. Si l'objectif est d'être présent parmi les grandes nations, il est nécessaire de surmonter de toute urgence ces fossés sociaux. Je vous remercie. À bientôt.
Merci, professeur Sarah, spécialement pour les chiffres, les très importants chiffres qui nous donnent la vision de l'inégalité au Brésil. Merci beaucoup. We have now Professor Lidwin Diaz, Principal of College of Social Work, Nirmala Niketa, Mumbai, India. Professor Diaz, the floor is yours. Job opportunities in social work.
Namaste. Greetings from the College of Social Work, Autonomous, Inequalities, Mumbai. I'm very happy to talk on the topic, job opportunities in social work. But before speaking on the job opportunities, I'd like to briefly introduce our college and then focus on what is social work profession and how it is different from social service. Importance of values and ethics in social work, role of social workers, how the social workers can contribute towards promoting social change, development, justice, equality, empowerment and liberation of people. College of Social Work, Inequalities, Mumbai was founded in 1955 during the first decade after India acquired independence from colonial rule. The college offers a range of courses relevant to the field of professional social work education and practice, such as bachelor's degree, master's degree, and a PhD program in social work, and short-term courses in order to equip with theory, practice, and skills in utilizing social work intervention. The college lays importance on ethical practice and the principle of professional social work. The vision and mission of the college is to contribute to building a new social order based on human dignity and social justice, to work with a preferential option for the vulnerable and exploited both locally and globally, to build a cadre of young, competent professionals having a global perspective and a strong value base of compassion, personal integrity, tolerance, and self-respect. The college has been awarded the grade of academic excellence by the National Accreditation and Assessment Council, the highest score in all the 3 cycles from 2001 onwards. Autonomous status was granted in 2019. National Institution Ranking Framework in 2020, college has secured 62nd position in India and first in Mumbai. Having a generic course, the students are exposed to the whole range of social work theory, problems in society and interventions required to tackle them. Our students get 100% employment in different sectors after completing the courses. Now coming to the social work profession. Professional social work has gained momentum in the last 8 decades in India and witnessed various phases of ideological perspectives within the profession. It has evolved from charity and philanthropy to addressing welfare needs to development for all by enhancing the empowerment and liberation of people and addressing discrimination and inequality through a right-based approach. Social work profession strives to elevate poverty and growth of the vulnerable and oppressed people in society in order to achieve the social inclusion and development. Therefore, the profession works in providing opportunities in developing the full potential of the people or the communities, enriching their lives and thereby aims to prevent marginalization of individuals, groups and communities. It incorporates and uses social sciences as a means to improve the human condition and positively change society's response to chronic problems like poverty, unemployment, child labor, malnutrition, health problems, human trafficking, discrimination and violence. Thus, it seeks to address and resolve social issues at every level of society and economic status, but especially among the poor and the vulnerable. It is a professional and academic discipline that seeks to improve the quality of life and well-being of an individual, group or community by intervening through research, policy, community development, direct practice and teaching on behalf of those afflicted with poverty or any real or perceived social injustice and violation of human rights. It helps communities to bring their welfare and related services into good balance. It works in medical groups and social, school situations. It seeks to correct the causes underlying delinquency and adult criminality. It also assists families that have serious domestic conflicts, disability and life-threatening diseases, social problems such as inadequate housing, unemployment or substance abuse. The International Federation of Social Workers, that's IFSW, International Associations of Schools of Social Work, IASSW, and the International Council on Social Welfare, ICSW, representing the entire spectrum of social work practice, social work education, and social development work globally, globally and jointly came together with a global agenda for social work and social development. The agenda called the attention of social workers on 4 major issues, namely social and economic inequalities, dignity of people, environmental sustainability, and importance of human relationships. The 4 core themes of the agenda were reducing social and economic inequalities, working on dignity and worth of the person, creating environmental sustainability, laying firm foundation on the importance of human relationships. Based on this agenda, IASW and IFSW in July 2014 came together to develop a global definition of social work, which is as follows. Social work is a profession which promotes social change, problem solving in human relationships, and the empowerment and liberation of people to enhance well-being, utilizing theories of human behavior and social systems, social work intervenes at the point where people interact with their environment. Principles of human rights and social justice are fundamental to social work. The social work profession is rooted in a set of core values such as service, social justice, dignity and worth of the person, importance of human relationships, integrity and competence. These core values embraced by the social workers are the foundation of social work's unique purpose and perspective. The ethical principles in social work help people in need to address social problems, to offer services to others above self-interest, to pursue social change and strive to ensure access to the needed information, services and resources, equality of opportunities and meaningful participation in decision-making for all people. Social work believes in treating each person in a caring and respectful manner, mindful of individual differences, cultural and ethnic diversity. Social work is a profession for those with a strong desire to help improve people's lives. Social workers assist people by helping them cope with and solve issues in their everyday lives, such as family and personal problems and dealing with relationships. Field work is a very important component in social work education. Besides the theory, students get an opportunity to relate theory to practice and in turn from the practical field work develop theory. It also calls for commitment and goes much beyond just an academic course. It is a rewarding career for those who are interested in working with people and wish to address social and community issues. Many people think that social work simply involves working with NGOs as a part-time job or an activity. But in reality, social workers work with individuals, communities and families and deal with social issues such as unemployment, education and poverty. Social workers contribute to the society by working for the upliftment of people, the poor people, by working with children with special needs and promoting women empowerment. Social workers perform a broad spectrum of duties ranging from providing support to those faced with difficult situations, emotional stresses or significant change in their lives to clinically diagnosing emotional, behavioral or mental health disorders in individuals. Not only do they help the individual cope with the situation at hand, they advocate for them and seek out valuable resources and other means of support for those in need. There are three general categories of levels of intervention for social work professionals. The first is macro, social work which involves society or community as a whole. This type of social work practice would include policy forming and advocacy on a national or international scale. The second level of intervention is described as meso, social work practice. This level would involve work with agencies, small organizations and other small groups. This practice would include policy making within a social work agency or developing programs for a particular neighborhood. The final level is the micro level that involves services to individuals and families. Social workers help people to overcome some of life's most difficult challenges: poverty, discrimination, abuse, addictions, physical illness, divorce, loss of employment, educational problems, disability, mental illnesses, etc. They help to prevent crisis and counsel individuals and families and communities to cope more effectively with the stresses of everyday life. Social work is a profession that serves individuals, families, and communities who seek preventive and rehabilitative interventions for an improved quality of life, focused on social and emotional development within the social environment. The scope of social work is national and international. The profession is social justice and action-oriented. Social work offers a wide array of opportunities in different settings and specialities, especially for graduates who hold both bachelor's as well as master's degree. Some of the job opportunities I would like to mention are as follows. In the field of health, we see the social workers being employed in both government as well as the NGO sectors in the hospital, hospice as well as mental health settings. As a medical social worker, they provide the necessary psychosocial support to help patients deal with terminal illness and conditions. They work together with doctors, nurses, administrators and other professionals to help patients and their families cope with chronic and terminal illness. They assess a patient's needs of medical and emotional treatment as well as for rehabilitation. Palliative and hospice social work sees to the social workers where they can support clients with a chronic illness and those nearing the end of life. They also provide assistance to their families. Palliative and hospice social work advocate for their patients' emotional and medical needs, help coordinate care and connect clients with services. Psychiatric social workers specialize in mental health services, including psychotherapy and diagnosing mental illness. These professionals must have an MSW and a clinical social work license. They may provide psychosocial assessments, provide therapy and coordinate with family members and the patients along with the medical team of psychiatric social work. The psychiatric social workers often work at hospitals, outpatient centers and in private practices. Social workers in mental health settings provide services for persons who are unable to deal with day-to-day stress due to depression, emotional distress, mental disorder or mental retardation. They also assist in planning for supportive services and activities within the community. There's also community social workers who manage community programs and help clients obtain resources. They may work for non-profit grassroots organizations or government agencies to provide vital resources for the community. Social workers participate in establishing and operating such services as homeless shelters, youth activities, free lunch programs, parent training and childcare, migrant workers services, educational programs, and services for homebound elderly and persons with disabilities, etc. The corporate sector is something that has come up new and it works as a private and corporate sector such as HRD of various companies and multinational companies. Work on the social needs of the employees and also undertaking different issues in adopting an NGO or initiating work in the community on their own. The government sector also employs social workers in different fields as development officers, as a welfare officer, or as a state home for women, adolescents, house child, and women development projects, as well as the various other hospital settings. Public welfare, when you see, social work in public welfare entails administrative implementation, monitoring and program evaluation of the public welfare system, Social workers provide information on how to apply for public assistance and other benefits, review eligibility requirements, and arrange for services. There's also other welfare activities that are there, like social work in the field of elderly, where assistance is being provided for the elderly persons. They run support groups for family caregivers, advice on the availability of services and long-term care, as well as and coordinate and monitor services for the elderly. The social work with disability basically works in the areas of where the social workers intervene in helping the person with disabilities and their family members. This will be mainly maximizing clients' involvement in exploring an expanded range of options and choices, and helps to empower groups of people with disabilities to consider policy and programs alternatives that can improve their situation. Then there is also correctional and social justice sector where our social workers are working. They focus on rehabilitation by providing therapy, drugs and alcohol addictions. They also provide the basic skills training. Then there is also the place where criminal justice social workers are there, where it advocates for the clients in the criminal justice system. Their clients include inmates or former convicts and also family members of the offenders. Then there is also a school social work where social workers work closely with teachers, administrators and other professionals to help children with physical or learning disability as well as emotional problems. They provide counseling and referral services for a range of concerns including family problems and various other problems like child abuse, neglect, poverty, etc. They also liaison between the family and the school and try to bring a close knit between the school and the community. Academicians and researchers are also one of the areas where the social workers have been employed to train social workers and also to take up researchers which help in policy levels as well as at the intervention in the field. During this pandemic period also, the social work institutions and the NGOs has reached out in relief work, counseling, awareness, providing support and various other activities for the deserving population, the migrants, etc. In conclusion, I want to say that social work profession is a noble profession with strong values to promote dignity and respect of all human persons. It is important for us as social work educators and practitioners to safeguard the profession and strive to bring change in spite of the challenges. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. Yes, and now we have Professors Inês Stampa and Nilza Rogéria Nunes, Director of Professor Inês of Social Work Department, PUC-Rio, and Professor Nunes, Professor of Social Work Department, Rio. They will lecture on precarious work in Brazil and the COVID-19 pandemic. Please, the floor is yours, Professor Nunes.
Precarious work in Brazil and the COVID-19 pandemic. It's a great pleasure to participate with Dr. Inês Stampa in this event, and we thank for you the opportunity to briefly share our reflections on the precarious work in Brazil and the COVID-19 pandemic. To address this topic, we bring some reflections resulting from studies carried out in the labor, public policy, and the social service research group, formed by lecturers and students from the social service department at PUC-Rio, and by fellow researchers from the other Brazilian institutions and abroad. The crisis of capitalism was aggravated in the context of the pandemic and accentuated the endemic precariousness of work in Brazil. This precariousness has roots in the deep social inequality that exists here, a legacy of a colonized country, the last to abolish slavery in Latin America, and reigns hostage to the ruling elites, which behave like castes here, exploiting and causing thousands of work lives to impress. As Eric Robesbal noted in his book, The Age of Extremes, Brazil is a monument to social inequality. The neoliberal model, with its consequences in the Brazilian economy, has provoked substantial changes in work for everyone. The current crisis is not, therefore, the result of the global health crisis, but a structural crisis together with the pandemic that shows the most pervasive face of capital, offering death for many and the more accumulation for a few of the wealthy, accentuating poverty and misery. Brazil has been experienced under the Bolsonaro government the deepening of neoliberal economics, which prioritizes more and more the so-called economy, to the detriment of people's lives, with attitudes and expressions that violently destroy the republic, dismantle social rights hard won by the working class and encourages a project of society that, vertiginously, is consonant with the myth that intersect the background, ultra-conservative, patriarchal, racist, sexist, elites, and so many other adjectives. We are living in a very destructive capitalism, which is responsible for the erosion of social labor rights, and which creating an amazing mass of individuals without working, salary, and the social security. The position of Brazil's federal government in the context of the pandemic is guided by the movement to save the economy, by which consequently increasing ever more the poverty on the working class, as it has been attacking workers' rights, as recently occurred with the labor and social security reforms and improves in less protective forms of work. Furthermore, it did not adopt preventive measures to contain the pandemic. On the contrary, it has been encouraged the not adoption of protective measures, especially for workers who receive low wage and who depend on collective transport, social, as commercial works. In other words, the lethality of the spontaneous of workers associated with the pandemic highlights and dependence the precariousness of the work and living conditions of male and female workers. Unemployment, which is structural in Brazil, is increasing every day. In the first quarter in 2021, January to March, Brazil had 50 million unemployed, unemployment rate of 14.8%, and 6 million despondent, people who would like to work but gave up looking, which constitutes a rate of unindustrialization of the workforce in 29.7%. It is alarming and worsening reality. In addition, the COVID pandemic has already caused more than 500,000 deaths in the country, mostly low-paid workers, for the reason explained above. The self-employed workers lost the most. According to data from the Brazilian Institute of Geography and Statistics, for every $20 they received before the pandemic, they gained only $12, loss of 14%. Among these are housemaiding and day laborers and those who are working for a private sector without a formal employment relationship, with loss of 13% of their earnings. Next come workers in the private sector and with the formal employment contract, who lost above 10% of their wages. Civil servants and the military had far less significant loss, but all were impacted by the economic, political, and the sanitary crisis that Brazil is experiencing. This year, emergency aid paid by the government to unemployed people is being paid in 4 installments of $13 for one-person families, $15 for families of 2 or more, or $75 for single mothers, parent households per month. It is noted that health and poverty are thus complex expression of the same sociability that reproduces the legitimates the inequality appropriation of resources. Its effects do not result from various, but from the disease impregnated that the economy, political, and the social process linked to gender, color, and race discrimination, which are so present in Brazil. The sanitary crisis fortunately exacerbated the historical and monumental social inequality materialized in a deep individualism and barbarism and social relations, experiencing intensive transformations arising for regressive country reforms process in progress, crossed by the logical of the immediate, in which the way of life is based on the market value of capitalism relations, where accumulation, wealth, and power matters much more than the lives of most of the population. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Professor Nunes. We have come to the end of this almost 4 hours international seminar. I think we had, profit a lot from all the lectures that we had. We had some very important discussions, proposals, and presentations that, brings us to understand a little bit more the important problem of water in the world and its importance for the future of the mankind. We have discussed social problems in India, in Congo, in Africa, and in Brazil, in Mumbai, in Brazil. And I think to end this seminar, I have to thank first my good friend and co-coordinator, Giuseppe Musnisi. And if he wants to talk, please, Giuseppe. But also, I want to thank very much, the people, the technical people that help us, the people from ECOA and CCI de PUC-Rio, Juan Dias, Eduardo Quental, and my people from the CCS, Luisa Mesquita and Luciana Varanda. They were very helpful, and we have to thank them for being able to succeed in this 3 continents, 3 hours, program. And Giuseppe, you have the final word for this event. And thank you, my friend, for the, helping to organize that.
Oh, thank you to you, Luis Roberto. I think that we have started good work with UNESCO. The presence of the participation of President Comer and Mr. Ott is a guarantee for the future. They enjoy the idea that we are preparing the second part on October 8th. So I believe that they will be able to involve other divisions of UNESCO, for example, on social issues, and to interconnect water and social issues. So I'm sure that we will do a great work also involving even deeper the Republic Democratic of Congo. So I hope that now, Luis Roberto, I won't bother you all over the weekend.
Thank you, Giuseppe. Thank you. Well, no, tomorrow is Saturday. Tomorrow is Saturday is the day that we normally talk of trying to prepare the seminar. So if you want to call me tomorrow, feel free to do that.
No. Thank you. Thank you all for your patience and a very interesting topic that we should deepen, because we have the privilege to handle them. So we have to do it. So thanks to everybody.
Okay. Well, thank you, everybody, and well, have a nice weekend. Wherever you are, have a very nice weekend. Thank you, Luciana. Thank you, Eduardo. Thank you, Juan. Thank you.